Andrew, nice to meet you. I will say that of all the people I've ever debated, you're the most universally hated. So that's generally the sign that you're a strong debater if one side hates you this much. So I'm looking forward to it tonight. I have the affirmative position that Trump deportations do more harm than good. I'm excited about this debate. Andrew, I know this is your third debate of the night. Usually with men, a third attempt in one night doesn't happen. So I have a sneaking suspicion it'll last a long time, and I hope you can finish. And congratulations on 200,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. I heard that today, so congrats.
They say smoking causes impotence.
We'll see what happens. Let's start the economy. I believe that Trump's deportations do more harm than good, mostly economically. Undocumented immigrants are more harm than good. I got that right. Undocumented immigrants are a vital part of the United States workforce, especially in industries like agriculture, construction, food service, elder care. They fill jobs that are hard to staff. They pay billions in taxes, and they help keep prices down for American consumers. In 2023, undocumented immigrants paid just under $100 billion in federal, state, and local taxes and held about $300 billion in spending power. Removing them would shrink the labor force. It would reduce productivity and hurt businesses that rely on their work. It would also multiple studies have shown that deportation would reduce U.S. GDP by up to 3%, which costs the economy hundreds of billions of dollars and leads to higher prices for everybody. Job losses for Americans would also increase. Deporting millions would not free up jobs for citizens. Instead, it causes labor shortages, forces businesses to close or relocate, and results in job losses for native-born workers as the economy contracts. 42% currently of our farm workers are undocumented immigrants. Without this labor force, crops go unharvested, fields aren't harvested, livestock may not be properly cared for or receive proper nutrition. Millions of tons of produce could be left unharvested due to a lack of workers. If we're successful in carrying out 3,000 deportations per day, which is now mandated by DHS, food prices are projected to increase by 10%. Potentially more, just as supply drops and production costs increase. Shortages of domestic produce may force increased reliance on imports, further raising prices and reducing food security. The only real solution to this seems to be more factory farms with a need for capital infusion, which will likely be facilitated through government subsidies or capital investment, putting family farms in the hands of corporations. In a MAGA movement, this creates a stark deviation from the claimed goal of helping American farmers and getting off over processed foods and roided out meat. These shortages would lead to a devastated rural economy across the country, leaving us with either a need for welfare or a mass migration to bigger cities. Agricultural production could be decreased by 30 to 60 billion, according to THS, which is a program that connects consumers with farm workers. Many small and mid-sized farms may be forced out of business due to labor shortages and rising costs. Local economies that depend on agriculture suffer from lost jobs and reduced spending in local economies. Domestic workers who are not filling farm jobs aren't doing so despite aggressive recruitment efforts. The H-2A guest worker program is too costly and bureaucratic for many farms to use as a replacement for this. Automation, I don't think, is a viable solution for most crops in the near term due to technical and financial barriers. Processing plants, distributors, and retailers will face large supply shortages and higher costs, impacting the entire food system. I think the fiscal harm of these deportations is significant. It leads to higher costs, not savings. The average cost to deport one undocumented immigrant is somewhere between $10,000 and $24,000. I like to settle in the middle at $15,000. Mass deportation of 13 million people would cost, at the very least, $315 billion. I think a better estimate is somewhere around $800 billion. We lose the $100 billion in tax revenue, which includes $33.9 billion that goes into Social Security and $6.4 billion that goes into Medicare. And that's money that these illegal immigrants aren't able to collect. It props up both of these programs. States and local taxes, states like Texas, California, New York, they collect billions of dollars in additional tax revenue from these residents in forms of property tax, sales tax, local taxes. I also believe that family separation and social disruption can't be measured in terms of data. adding division into cities, counties, states in the country where there's no evidence of fiscal benefit is frankly baffling to me. It leads, I think, some people to think that possibly this is about cruelty, possibly this is about race, possibly this is about ethno-states. However, I wouldn't go that far. Mass deportations tear apart families. There's millions of U.S. citizens that are children here. They have undocumented parents. Deportations force either a separation or a traumatic event in their life. That traumatized children also would increase in foster care and social service costs. When immigrants fear deportation, they're also less likely to report crimes or cooperate with police, making communities less safe. And in some communities, this lack of trust moves communities to move towards gang admission for their protection and economic mobility. I think it has impacts on school. Children in mixed status families suffer academically and emotionally when a parent's deported, and health outcomes generally worsen. I also think there is a moral and humanitarian harm. I think maybe Andrew and I disagree on how important that is. I think due process violations are leaving Americans with questions to whether or not their government takes due process seriously. I've seen recent Republican proposals calling for the ending of protection for legal immigrants, including DACA and TPS recipients. I also think this has hurt our reputation around the world and may cause problems in the future with us recruiting people to come here to work, even if it's not for admission, for residency, but just to work. I see no net benefit to deporting this many people. I think the evidence is pretty clear on that. The best economic studies show that undocumented immigration has little to no effect on U.S. wages. Immigrants are less likely to commit crime. And while there are localized costs that sometimes in neighborhoods with a higher immigrant population, there sometimes are higher localized costs, but that's generally just education, and I'm fine paying for that. In conclusion, I think Trump's mass deportation agenda would inflict enormous economic, fiscal, and human harm while failing to deliver the promised benefits. It would make America poorer, less safe, and less true to what many of us perceive its values to be. And then one last thing, I do know from watching YouTube videos about how to win a debate that sometimes you must intimidate your opponent. And so, Andrew. Yeah.
Wait, is it an olive jar or a pickle jar?
No, I don't have olives. It was not a one-to-one comparison.
It would have been better if the jar was sealed too.
I would have been able to open it, and then I would have looked like an idiot, Andrew.
Yeah, those are the
I had
rules.
to look tougher. Yeah.
Thank you, RTP, and Andrew, to you.
Okay, so I'm actually kind of surprised. These are kind of very basic leftist arguments. Most of them are pretty easy to refute. Kind of off the top immediately. Because you have the positive position, I didn't feel the necessity to create an elongated opening statement because I'm here to create refutations for your claims, not vice versa. As you have the positive claim, we should allow undocumented workers to stay. There was a whole bunch that was missing from that, though, and I feel like we should go into this. So first, he brings up the economy. This is kind of the idea you'll hear the most from progressives is that there's a lot of kind of economic benefits which come into the United States from undocumented immigrants. They never tell you the other side of that, which is that they're effectively creating a slave class. How do we know that they're effectively creating a slave class? Well, because my opponent literally just said so. He said that there are states which collect millions upon millions of dollars in Social Security taxes from people who will never be the beneficiaries of said Social Security. Now, far be it from me, in a way for me to ask my opponent, how is it that the government is collecting Social Security taxes from people who don't have Social Security numbers? That's a very strange phenomenon, isn't it? No, illegal, no Social Security number, yet able to collect Social Security taxes. Well, that's bizarre. And then at the same token, my opponent would probably be the first type to say, well, they're not over here doing identity theft in mass and stealing people's Social Security numbers and things like this. Why would he say that? Only somehow the state has devised some sort of evil plan in which they can exploit workers who have no Social Security numbers for millions of dollars in Social Security taxes. A bit bizarre from my end that there's no identity theft going on, yet somehow the state's able to do that. Super weird. I'm sure he can give us an accounting for that, though, except he won't. By the way, He says immigration would lead to a contraction of 3% of the GDP. I would even be willing to grant this just for the sake of argument. Who gives a shit? Even if it does, we make up for it in the act of social cohesion. This very idea that this is such a dividing force in the American public that we need to create some sort of window dressing for immigrants to come in a very unfettered way, including illegally, and somehow that's going to unite us when we just got done watching the riots happen in California, which I'm sure my opponents will say, those weren't riots, even though we literally watched them right here live every single night on, 10 plus cameras, literally watching as they were doing battle with ICE and the military, throwing firebombs at them and everything else. He'll say, well, those weren't illegals. Those must have just been, domestically born Mexicans waving the Mexican flag, and it had nothing to do with illegal immigrants, even though the entire thing was about illegal immigrants and ICE doing their job and collecting them and sending them outside of the nation, which is exactly what they're supposed to do. He says that there's going to, what about job losses for native born? The thing that's really interesting about this is if you were to get rid of all immigrant labor, this slave labor class, which is existing on these farms, which is paying apparently millions of dollars to our state, local, and even federal government through Social Security, how is it that that would actually create job decreases for the United States? I have no idea how my opponent will reconcile this position. Seems to me like you have a supply and demand issue. If it is the case, the supply of workers goes down, the demand for workers goes up, thus wages for naturalized Americans to do those jobs would necessarily have to increase. They have no answer for this as well. He also points out that millions come here is moral argument who have undocumented parents, and their parents have the child here, and that Trump's policies are breaking up families. While I can grant that this is true, that's not really a moral argument. That's just a descriptor. He's just describing a phenomenon, not saying why it's actually immoral. He says, well, it's because it breaks up families. But it's like, okay, so does sending people to jail for crimes. That breaks up families. So does creating economic conditions in which one parent has to work abroad. That breaks up families. There's all sorts of ways that we can construe that you can break up a family, which is not immoral. When it comes to this, though, he just asserts, well, it's somehow immoral that if both of your parents are here illegally and they have a child here who then immediately gets birthright citizenship, that you're breaking up the family. That actually would be a better argument for why you should give no birthright citizenship at all to children who are born here domestically from parents who don't belong here. Why? Because then you wouldn't break the family up, right? Then the child would have to necessarily go with the parents, which is exactly what they should be doing anyway. Instead, they use these children as linchpins, never intended for that, by the way. Even the Supreme Court ruling, which is pointing to this, there was never an intention ever for there to be people who did not have U.S. citizenship who could have a child on our continent, literally in North America and in the United States, or any of the other places which are United States adjacent. Sometimes this is even argued right down to the province, that there are some places like Chile or things like this, which could be loosely associated with the United States, where a person could get citizenship that way. I've even seen leftists argue for that. Now, my opponent didn't, and so for the purposes of not strawmanning him, I'm just pointing out why in the world would you want to have a system in which you could have a child on our soil, right? And then they are declared an American citizen when their parents shouldn't even be here in the first place. That's insane. I would actually like him to tell me why it would be immoral to not grant them citizenship and rather send them back with their parents. That seems like the most moral thing that you can do. I would actually like to start there. He points out the moral and humanitarian harms. He says in protection for DACA immigrants and like I just said, birthright citizenship. When it came to DACA, so what? You implement a U.S. policy. We don't like how the policy turns out, so we change the policy. We do this all the time. Even if it's the case that Republicans want to end anything that has to do with DACA or making sure that people have a pathway to citizenship who aren't supposed to be here, I would also like to hear the moral argument for that. He just asserted that this is a moral argument. He just asserts, well, this is bad because it's bad because I think it's fucking bad. Well, that's great, but that's not justification for why it's actually bad. So we can go through all of these things in sequence, but I'd actually like to start with this idea of the morality here when it comes to birthright citizenship and what his actual problems are there. And then I'm happy to, from there, move into these like economic quandaries that he thinks he has. So whenever you guys are ready, I'm happy to dive right into it.
Do you want to maybe restate the question where you wanted to start at, Andrew?
Yeah. Why is it actually immoral to not grant birthright citizenship to the children of people who are in the country illegally? Why is that actually immoral?
I never said that.
So then I'm sorry. So what's the immoral argument?
I didn't make any moral arguments.
You did. You said, in a quote, this is actually immoral. The moral argument, which I will be making, and then you went into DACA and how we're breaking families up and how that's immoral. So can you tell me why
said
that's
that there are Americans who view it as a moral or humanitarian harm, and then I brought up due process violations, ending protections for illegal immigrants, and our international reputation.
Okay, so let's make sure that we get this right. It's not actually immoral for us to end birthright citizenship.
No.
Okay, great. So then when Trump moves to end birthright citizenship, your only objection is that it's going to hurt you economically?
Yeah, I think it's just a dumb decision.
Because it's going to hurt you economically.
Probably not going to hurt me economically, but I think overall,
Well, it's going to hurt somebody economically.
I think overall for the country, it has an impact on the country, and I don't see a reason why we need to do that. Yeah.
Okay, I see. So it's not immoral to end birthright citizenship. The only reason that you don't want to end it is because you think that that's going to create more economic problems for more American citizens. Is that right?
I honestly don't care if we end birthright citizenship. I just don't want it done by executive order. I think it should be done through Congress.
Well, it's not being done through executive order.
Well, that's what he tried to do, right?
No, what he did was he used an executive order to get the ball rolling, so it got in front of the Supreme Court, which is what he said from the very beginning.
Fine, but I still think we should do it through Congress, which we're going to have to do, right? If we want to change that law.
And where's it being done? And where's it being done?
Through Congress.
Okay, well then I don't even understand that objection.
I don't have an objection to it. I said I don't care if we do it.
So then what's your issue here with the supposed humanitarian harms? Why did you bring up DACA, humanitarian harms, the moral argument?
Why are you talking about birthright citizenship? That's not DACA.
I'm sorry. What is DACA?
DACA is what a deferred action. It wasn't necessarily birthright citizenship, right?
What is it?
It was also people who were brought here as children.
And it's a pathway to citizenship for them, right?
Yeah, that's not the same. I don't view that as the same as
why should we give that to them? Why is it
because
immoral
I think because I think it makes sense.
Yeah, but why is it immoral not to?
I don't care about morals. I have no position.
You don't care about morals. Okay,
no,
you don't have no position on morals. Great.
No.
Okay, so it's not immoral for us to end DACA, and it's not immoral for us to end birthright citizenship.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. So then,
I just think it's dumb.
Okay, you just think
it's dumb.
You
By
just
the way,
think it's dumb.
I do want to point out real quick that you seem to maybe be having a different debate than me.
I don't think I am.
You said that
try it together.
Well, just real quick, you said that my claim is that we should allow immigrants to stay. What I said is Trump deportations do more harm than good. That's my claim.
Is that immoral?
I don't care about morality. It's irrelevant to me.
But I'm going to try to explain something to you so that you understand. It's very important that you understand this.
Okay.
If you make this claim that the reason we should do X is because if we don't, it's stupid and bad. It's bad to do X. It's not good. Are you saying that it would be bad, or you're just neutral on the fact that we could cost ourselves 3% of the GDP?
Yeah, I think I laid that out. Economically, it's a bad idea.
Okay, so then it's immoral.
No, I don't know. It's not based on
Then
morals.
what does fucking bad mean?
Math. I don't like the
bad
I don't
means
like
math?
The math. I don't like the math on it.
Can
I
we
don't like
back
the
it
math on
up?
it.
Can we back it up? Because harm can dive into
Well,
the
what does bad
morality
mean here?
concept.
It means the math is negative. That would
Okay,
be bad,
and why is that bad though? What makes that bad?
because I don't like losing money.
So I'm sorry. When you say bad, I can grant that there could be two forms of bad.
Sure.
I'm having a bad day,
Sorry.
right? That sucks, right? Because I'm having a bad day. That's a Common's word, a use of the word bad, right? But if I say like murder is bad, I'm saying that that's an immoral thing, right? You would agree with me on that?
Sure, whatever.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So
Right.
when you say that contracting necessarily 3% of the GDP is bad, do you mean as in I'm having a bad day, or as in this is going to be immoral because the outcomes for people's not going to work out very well?
Neither. You just said it. You left out one part. Like if I make less money, that's bad. But that's not really moral. That just
Like
I'm making
bad
less
is in
money.
a bad day?
Sure, it's bad for my finances. Sure.
Okay, so then all you mean by bad here is the same as you would
You
mean
said
with...
bad. You said bad. I said okay.
No, no, I asked
I said
hang
I think
on.
the math is bad. 'Cause
Yeah, so then
it
I
has a
didn't say bad,
result.
you said bad, right?
I was responding to you saying it, but that's fine.
Yeah,
Semantics.
so when you say, well, hang on, semantics are super important for a debate, and that's why I'm trying to get these things clarified. You may
No,
not
I think
so.
I would like to talk about the. Well, I think what you're trying to do is drag this into a moral argument because I don't
No.
think you have numbers to back up anything.
I'm
that you're
just
saying.
starting
That's why my argument specifically didn't talk about morals, Andrew. I talked about actual data. I'm looking at the economic impact of these people, and you want to talk to me about morals. I'm not interested in that conversation.
Well, can I try to explain to you and give you an expression of
Sure.
why this is so silly to me? If the economic data that you want backed up, even if I were to grant that you're completely correct, but you say it's not a moral proposition, why the fuck should I even care?
You don't have to care.
Why should anybody care?
You don't have to care.
No,
I'm not asking. I'm not. We showed up for a debate. I gave the prompt: Trump deportations do more harm than good. I didn't sign up to debate.
Is
whether or
harm
not you
okay?
should care.
Is harm bad?
In this case, I think it is. Yeah.
Okay, so harm is immoral.
I don't care about morals, dude. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want to do here.
Because I'm just
What are we
trying to
doing?
figure out what you mean by bad.
No, what you're trying to do is drag me into a moral argument because
No,
you
I'm
have
just
a
trying to
you have
figure
a-
out
your
what you mean by
position is-
bad.
Your position is based on your morals. My position is based on math, which is why I don't have like this universal look. A lot of the things that you accuse me of, you're like, here's what people on the left do. You thought I was going to be against birthright citizenship. You think I'm against deportations. You think that I am pro illegal immigration. I'm not pro any of those things. It seems like you didn't listen to a word I said in my opening statement and just decided from the get-go that you were going to have a moral discussion here.
No, I went down each point that you made and gave a refutation in my own intro.
No, you
When
missed
you're-
most of them.
When you're discussing this though, listen, it's not a gotcha. I'm not even looking for the moral discussion.
Okay.
All I'm looking for right now is to clear up semantics so that we understand we're not speaking past each other. If you're just coming in to say, oh, the numbers look good on our side, great, who cares? That's not what the argument is about. The argument's about whether it does more harm than good. So when we say things like a harm principle or a good principle, right? If you're neutral on the fact that if there's economic output, which is problematic, I win the debate by default because you haven't demonstrated there's any harm because harm's not bad. Or if you say good, when you say good, I assume that you mean that this is something which is positive, the opposite of harm, and so that's a more moral proposition. So either of those things, more harm, when you say harm and good, you mean moral, immoral. If you mean something else by harm or good, then I want to get those semantics cleared up so we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, I cleared that. This is like the fifth time I've cleared it up. Right? Economically, it's bad for our country. I think it does harm to our economy.
Bad meaning what?
Bad meaning the numbers are negative.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell me anything. So anytime
What
numbers
else do you want me to tell you?
Is anytime numbers are negative, is that bad?
No, negative numbers can be
Okay,
good,
right.
like in golf.
Sure. So then negative numbers don't just mean bad. So when
But
you
in this
say
case,
bad,
in this case, it's
yeah,
it's
and what
yeah.
makes that bad though?
Because there's less money circulating through our economy.
Yeah, but that's just giving me one step further in the descriptor, not telling me what bad actually means.
I'm not interested in a semantic debate about what bad means, Andrew.
It's
I'm here
not
to
a
debate
semantic
immigration.
debate. It's clarifying what you
It
mean
is.
by the thing.
You're talking about the harm principle. You're setting parameters on this debate.
What's the debate
so that
called?
we can.
What's the debate topic?
Not what is the harm principle. There's lots of definitions to
What
harm. Why are
is the
you
debate
using harm
topic?
principle?
Just tell me what the debate topic is.
Deportations do more harm than good.
Is it appropriate for me to ask you what harm and good mean when the debate prompt is specifically alluding to both of those things?
Yeah, I think that it's not the harm principle, though. You can use the word
Okay.
harm in many different ways.
And
You can
those
use
are the
it to
ways I'm
describe a
trying to get
physical
you to-
injury.
and
And
yes.
I'm saying that this is a way that it is deliberately inflicted on our economy. Deliberately inflicted.
Okay.
That is
but-
a definition of harm.
Yeah. So, do you realize like immediately the problem that you have here?
No.
So, well, I'll explain it to you.
Thank you.
So when you say this has nothing to do with some principle or anything like that, when you say more harm than good, you're saying that there's a negative there, and the negative outcome, I would guess, is the harm, right?
Yeah, well, in this case, I think that we are
Okay.
deliberately inflicting damage to our economy, and the outcome of that is a less stable economy.
And that's bad.
Yeah, sure.
So that would be immoral.
Great. It's immoral.
Okay, so it's immoral. So when
Sure.
you say harm in this case, you're saying this thing is immoral.
I'm
right?
not saying any of that. You are. If we whatever we have to do to move on from this shit, that would be great.
I just need you to not equivocate.
I know that I know it's frustrating because you want to have a moral debate.
No.
I would like you to outline anything I said, and we can discuss whether it's good or bad.
Okay, I'll explain this to you so that you
Thank
understand. Pull up the equivocation fallacy for me and read.
No.
Okay, do you need me to pull
Pull
it
up the
for you?
definition of harm.
Yeah, I'll pull up the definition of harm.
Okay.
There's going to be a multitude of definitions, but I'll give
Great.
you...
So why are you picking harm principle instead of one of the
Well,
definitions
because
I'm using of harm?
that's
It's
what-
my claim.
Yeah.
It's me telling you what my claim
Yeah,
means.
I know what your claim is, but your claim has to have meaning to me. So the thing is I'm going to pull up... I'll pull up your definition, or all definitions of harm. You can pick one. I'm fine with that.
Sure. I just did. I told you it was deliberately inflicted destruction of our economy.
So that you understand the equivocation fallacy, I'll read it for you verbatim. These aren't even gotchas. It's not even trickery. I'm just trying to get the semantics out of the way so we can get to the debate. Equivocation is the use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or avoid committing to a specific stance. That's what equivocation is. It involves using words or phrases with multiple meanings in a way that can mislead the listener or the reader. So the reason
I just
wanted
told
to-
you what the meaning was.
Can-
I just
can you-
told you three times
bro, can you
what
chill
my
out?
meaning was.
Hold on,
Can you just
hold
chill
on.
out?
Finish.
Just
I
chill
can,
out.
but this is silly.
It's not silly. It's just that you're not used to actually having to commit to your stance. So equivocation is the use of ambiguous language to conceal the truth or avoid committing to a specific stance. I'm saying that you're guilty right now of using an equivocation fallacy in your arguments because you won't make such a firm stance on what harm means.
I disagree.
Okay, then what does harm mean?
Deliberately inflicted destruction to our economy.
Okay. That's all harm means?
In this case, that's what it means. Harm can mean different things at different times, but
So
right now I'm
just-
explaining how I'm using the word.
Okay. And if you're deliberately hurting the economy, should that be avoided?
In my opinion, yeah.
Okay, in your opinion, yes, it should be avoided.
Yeah.
Is that because it's going to have negative outcomes on people?
Yes.
Okay, yes, it will have negative outcomes. Yes, it will have negative outcomes. And are negative outcomes a thing which we should avoid?
I think when we can, sure.
Okay, negative outcomes should be avoided. So, negative outcomes avoided. So, to summarize your position on harm, deliberately hurting the economy should be avoided because it will have negative outcomes. Negative outcomes should be avoided. So,
When we can.
when
we
okay, I'll even add that just
Thank
to be super charitable when
Thank
we
you.
can. So does that mean that if we're not avoiding negative outcomes when we can, that's bad?
Sure.
Okay. So it's bad not to do that. It's bad not to do that. When I say bad here, do we mean that this is immoral? In other words, is it immoral to deliberately hurt the economy because that should be avoided because it'll have negative outcomes, and negative outcomes should be avoided when we can?
I don't know that it has anything to do with morals.
You don't know that it has anything to do with what is... I'm sorry. So it's not a moral proposition to say that we ought avoid
No,
X thing.
I keep telling you
because
none
it's
of these
bad.
are moral propositions.
They're all moral propositions, every one of them.
How are they moral propositions?
Because when you say bad, you're making a moral entanglement there, and you're saying that because the outcome is
That
negative...
wasn't moral.
Should an
wasn't moral.
outcome which is negative be avoided?
No, I think the problem that we have here, Andrew, is that you think that I'm going to extend my position on immigration across the board and that I'm always going to choose. And I think this is the problem with this debate. You think I'm always just going to choose to never do anything that has a negative outcome. I think in this instance, it's pretty easy to look at what's happening. It's pretty easy to say, where is the benefit? I don't know of any. You can maybe tell me what the benefits might be. I don't see any benefits to mass immigration, especially when there's sensible solutions like granting amnesty to people who are here, whose only crime is being here illegally, who have been working for decades. I think that there are legitimate solutions, and it feels like you want to have a moral, philosophical discussion instead.
Well, what you're making there is a moral claim that the thing should be avoided because it has a negative impact on X group. Therefore, how do you get around the fact that that's a moral claim exactly?
I think that there's very few things that happen inside of a country where there is a government where no matter what side you take, there is going to be a negative outcome to somebody. right? So I'm looking at what do I think affects the greater
so
good.
then I would just counter and say I can even agree that any type of policy you have will have some disaffected people from that policy, whether they're the rich or the middle. But you would just say that that's a moral entanglement, that it was a moral entailment, that if the rich suffer so that, 10,000 poor people get their meals, you would just say that that's a moral trade-off, right? But these are all moral so these are all moral propositions. So I'm just trying to get to the heart of what good and bad. In this case, more harm than good. We're trying to figure out what the good is from your view. What is the good? Is the good GDP? Is that what the moral proposition is? More GDP good? Is the good social cohesion? What is the good?
Do you want me to read the whole opening statement again? I covered that.
If you can read in the opening statement what the good is.
Yeah, so it protects us from GDP growth. It keeps wages at least stationary. There's $300 billion or so in spending power that is immediately taken away. If you get rid of all of those people, you're going to lose, especially in rural communities that require migrant labor, both legal and illegal. That's drying up now. So I live in Arizona, down in Yuma, Arizona. They're having a hard time finding even legal laborers who used to come here because they're afraid.
Yeah,
I think it hurts farmers, and I think that pushes us more towards factory farming, which I think is a problem for all Americans. I think it's a problem for all of our food supply to have that fall into the hands of factory farmers.
Sure. So you're giving me descriptors of things which you consider to be problematic, but you haven't actually told me what the good is that we're supposed to be going for here. What's the good? What does good mean here?
What is the good?
Yeah, because more harm than good. So now we've determined that harm is deliberately hurting the economy, I guess for this specific instance, and that should be avoided. And yes, it'll have a negative outcome, which is why it should be avoided. Negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and it's bad to do that. That's your claim on harm. I'm just trying to figure out what's your claim on good. What is the good?
Well, I don't think it's doing any good. I don't think these deportations are doing any good.
Well, that's just evading what the question is. What is the good?
How would I tell you what the good is if I don't think it's doing any good?
Because
Andrew?
The proposition here, well, just wait a second. This is bizarre to me that you would state that you don't think a thing is doing any good, but won't tell me what the good is.
Well, I don't know what that. I don't know.
You don't know what that means?
No, I don't know what.
I don't know what good means.
I don't even know what their intention is.
So you don't know what good is. You don't know what bad is. You don't know what harm is.
How would I tell you what the good is if I don't think it's doing any good?
I don't know. The proposition is good or harm. So I don't know what debate you're prepared for, but it was, does it do more harm than good? So tell me, sir, what the fuck is the good?
I don't think there is any good.
You don't think there is any good. So,
no.
So then it's just, does it do more harm than nothing?
Yeah, well, I think that. Wait, why does it have to? Why can't it be? Why does it have to be good here? Why does it?
Because you just said there is no. Because that's the proposition. Does it do more harm than good? And your response is there is no good.
Yes, it can do zero good.
So, okay, but what's the prompt? What's the prompt?
Fuck. Are we going to do this all? Are we going to do semantics all
until we get the semantics clear? Yes.
Yeah, I don't care. Whatever.
Well, I'm glad you don't care, but I care. So what is the good?
This is like the dumbest conversation.
You want me to meet you.
I want me to talk about immigration and not what fucking words mean.
So then stop equivocating. Stop equivocating then.
Gentlemen,
Jesus
if I
Christ.
can maybe kind of pry in for a moment, maybe offer a thought process, RTP, in terms of the harm concept here. Like, for instance, if you have a company and they're running a product and they have a recall on it, right? Because things are going bad, like what they do to even think about what that recall would be, is it more money to pay out for lawsuits that are going to come our way, or is it kind of cheaper in essence to recall the item and replace all the stuff? And that comes through like the general harm of things.
So what would be the good there?
So the good would be people get their shit fixed, or people get payouts for having, they get in a car accident because the brakes don't work, right? So there are good pieces built in, but also there's the harm principle that's built in behind it, and it's the ethical standard in any like economical stance, right?
Okay,
yeah,
so
we might make more money, but ethically, are we good?
So what if the people don't get their car fixed or they don't get their money back? Then is there a good there?
How do if they don't know about it, or what?
The harm, right, was the destruction to their vehicle, right?
Right. That would be
And if
inevitable
nobody
to
fixes
work
it,
harm.
if nobody fixes the vehicle or pays them damages, where's the good?
The good would be the company didn't lose any money.
Okay, so the good here is that Donald Trump gets
But
to
then, is it
fulfill a
good?
Unless
campaign
that's
promise.
bad. Unless
Is
that's
it
bad.
good, though?
Okay, then
So-
Donald Trump gets to fulfill a campaign promise. There's my good then.
And so that's where I say, like, there are a lot of ethics to economical stances, and I think that's maybe what Andrew's trying to poke at.
And
Correct
in
me if
this
I'm
case,
wrong.
I'm not even attempting to do that. I'm not even attempting to get into the ethics. I'm just simply trying to make sure that we don't equivocate. Equivocation being the use of ambiguous language where you mean something by it, I don't mean. I mean something by it, you don't mean. Right now, I don't even know what you mean by these terms because the entire time you've been yelling at me that you don't want to clarify what any of them mean. And that to me is absurd. We're here to have a debate. I need to know exactly what you mean by the terms in the debate proposition, harm or good. Hang on. In this case, I'm simply asking you, now that we have literally a definition for what you consider harm to be, and I read it out to you, agreed to it multiple times, I'm just asking for the same standard for what good is.
So the good would be that Donald Trump gets to fulfill a campaign promise then.
Does that mean all
you're
good?
good?
So when you
Jesus
say,
Christ. Bro, what the fuck?
yeah, I don't know what you're laughing about. This is how you debate.
I'm laughing at this.
when-
I think this is ridiculous. Like I think this
you
is
can
crazy.
think it's ridiculous, and
I
you
would
can think
love
it's
to. I would
crazy.
love to at some point talk about immigration.
I would love to at some point get you to
All right.
clarify what you mean by
So
the
good
terms.
is to be desired or approved of. The desire in this case would be Donald Trump fulfilling a campaign promise. Now I've used the word good correctly and told you what I mean by it. I've
Okay.
used the word harm correctly and told you what we mean by it. Now, is it possible that we could talk about
Yeah,
immigration?
yeah. I
Okay.
just want to make sure that that we're clear on both these terms and you agree to
Thank you.
them. That harm is deliberately hurting the economy, and that should be avoided, and that it will have negative outcomes, and negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and that's bad, and that's what you mean by harm, and that's what you mean by bad, and good to you just means to be desired or approved of.
Neat.
Is that right?
Sure, dude. Sure.
Okay. All right. Now we got that cleared up. So
Thank
what's your
you.
question?
I didn't ask you a question. You were asking me questions. I don't have questions.
Oh, I see.
You haven't made.
So
You haven't made a position. You haven't really made a position yet. You strawmanned my entire opening
I don't
monologue.
see how I could have
You
strawmanned it.
said that you brought up Social Security and that I would say that they're not stealing Social Security numbers. Of
Yeah.
course, they're stealing Social Security numbers.
And is that
That's how
to
they-
be
that's
is
how they're
that to
paying
be
into Social
desired? Is
Security.
that to be desired or approved of?
No?
So it's not good.
No, that's why I want amnesty to get these people to pay in legally.
So okay, I see. So the position here is that that's really bad. Then the economic argument in which you're making that there's millions of dollars going to the government, which they don't have to account for, actually is negated instantly because what you really want to do is make sure that the local governments don't get that money anymore unaccounted for, right?
No, incorrect. Because of it's a small minority of people who are using a stolen Social Security number. Most people working illegally don't do it with a stolen Social Security number. So giving those people Social Security numbers would increase the amount they're paying into Social Security and Medicare.
Wait, back up for me.
Okay.
Most people who are paying into Social Security illegally are not using a Social Security number.
No. Most
Oh, no.
people working illegally are not using a Social Security number and therefore not contributing to Social Security.
Oh, I see. So then all of the people, then what you're actually saying is that there's hundreds of millions of dollars which are unaccounted for, which are going to illegal immigrants in the terms of service in the state that we can't even account for because they can't even be tracked through Social Security?
No, I accounted for that when I talked about the money that they're paying into local taxes through things like sales tax, property tax if you're a renter.
What does that have to do with Social
municipal
Security,
taxes.
though?
It doesn't have anything to do with Social Security.
Yeah, so we're just talking about Social Security. So if it is the case then that you wanted to have a Social Security...
What can I just ask you then? Maybe I misunderstood your question.
Yeah.
Where's this floating money then? What are you talking about?
That's actually what my question is about. I'm asking you specifically, if it is the case that you're saying that the reason that we need to give these people amnesty is so that we can issue them Social Security numbers and thus track their contributions. When I pointed out that doesn't make any sense because then your economic argument, which is stating that the government should have all this free money that they then don't have to spend back on these immigrants, is negated. You said, no, it's not actually, because there's millions of more dollars that they would be collecting if they gave
Correct.
other immigrants who don't do that
A social security
numbers.
number, and then they would
Yeah.
pay into Social Security, and then our receipts for Social Security would go way up.
Then that would be an entailment then that right now there's millions upon millions of laborers who outnumber the amount of laborers who are spending into the Social Security system, who are getting goods and services and aren't contributing at all.
Nobody that's illegal is getting goods and services from Social Security.
That's not what I said. I didn't say from Social Security, but
So now we're not just. Well, you just told me we were only talking about Social Security. So
I
thought that's
am,
what we were talking.
but
Oh, okay.
but you mischaracterized my argument. So my argument would just be simply, if there's millions more who aren't paying in than are, I don't understand why you're using that as some kind of ideal of, well, this is actually a good thing because they're paying millions of dollars to the federal government.
Yeah, if you
when there's
increase
millions more who aren't.
Yeah, if you increase the amount of people paying into Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, it diversifies the amount of people. It means that there's more people paying in, which means there's less taken out per capita because we have more people paying in.
I see.
It's a good thing.
And can you answer me a question? Do we spend more money per year on Social Security than we take in?
Social Security, we are not allowed to spend more money on Social Security than we take in. However, the government regularly borrows from it, and so we pay interest on Social Security
So we're
where the
paying
government
more?
has stolen from it. Yeah, and I'm against that too.
So to get this right, what your plan's actually, the entailment of your plan is that you would give millions more people Social Security numbers who then the government would borrow against, and we would actually increase our debt because we spend more money per year on Social Security than we get out of Social Security. So, but hang on, by your metric then, if that's the case, and you just agreed that it was, then I would say that that would be a negative, and negative outcomes are to be avoided when we can, because that's bad and immoral.
I actually didn't agree to any of that. Just because there's more money in Social Security doesn't mean that the government will borrow from it. The government has a spending
Okay,
problem.
can you tell me the last year the government didn't borrow from Social Security? Can you tell me the last year the government didn't borrow from Social Security?
Let me just finish my statement before you freak the fuck
Go
out.
ahead,
Andrew.
RTP.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, the government doesn't have to steal from Social Security. They don't have to.
But do
in
they?
fact, I think that we should actively work on electing people who promise not to steal from Social Security.
Yeah, can you tell me how much can you give me the last Democrat administration who didn't borrow from Social Security?
Probably not. I'm not a Democrat though.
Yeah, well, can you give me the last Democrat or even Republican that didn't borrow from Social Security?
I don't think anybody in my lifetime hasn't borrowed from Social
So
Security.
then would it stand to reason then that the trend would continue, that the government would continue to borrow money from Social Security and then accrue interest on that, thus actually creating more in the way of debt, meaning that they're paying out more than they're taking in because they've accrued this additional debt?
No, because they're not taking the debt. The Social Security is not the debt. The reason that the government takes from Social Security is because it's somebody who will lend to them. Maybe if we were a little more strict on Social Security, they couldn't lend from Social Security. But I've seen no evidence that any amount of budgeting is ever going to stop our federal government from overspending. I don't think this is a very good argument. I don't think it's a good argument to say if more people pay into Social Security,
fair.
Therefore, the government will spend more money. I think that's pretty fucking loose.
Okay, then all you got to do is show me the instance or the year in which the government was not taking in the Social Security payments from all of the benefactors and then borrowing against it, thus creating debt. And
I think you're drawing.
I would love
I think
for
you're
you to
drawing
do
a
that.
correlation without a causation there. I don't think that you could say that our net receipts for Social Security is why the government goes into more debt. I think you'd have a really hard time proving that.
Then why don't they put it in a lockbox?
Because they didn't listen to Al Gore. I don't know.
Why don't they?
Because they don't want to. They want to keep borrowing from it.
Why?
Because it's money that comes in every year.
So
So
they
you're saying-
wanted. So hang on.
Yeah.
So to get this right, the government wants to borrow all this Social Security money that comes in every year, which accrues debt, meaning that they're actually spending more money than they're paying, or I'm sorry, than they're getting. Right? They're spending more money than they're getting from Social Security by borrowing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
But they're
So
going to
then-
spend it. They're going to spend it anyways.
Hang on, I
don't
just
think
want
this
to
has
point
anything
this.
to do
I
with
just
Social
want to
Security.
point out. Well, they won't spend it if it's not there, right?
Yes,
They'd
they
have
will.
to
They
borrow
will
from
just-
somewhere else.
Yeah, they'll just sell more They'll sell more treasury bonds.
Yeah, so under your
And they'll sell it to billionaires, and then we'll pay interest to billionaires instead of to Social
So
Security.
then under this economic plan, it actually makes no sense, because what you're saying is that all you would do is accrue more Social Security numbers for the government to accrue more debt from as they borrow against it.
No, I think
Okay,
that's
tell
I
me
think
how
that's
that doesn't
so fucking
work.
Loose.
Tell
'Cause
me
I
how
think
it doesn't
it's
work
loose.
that way.
I don't think there's any evidence that says if the government started taking in less Social Security that they would borrow less money. They would just borrow it from somebody else.
I'm sorry. Hang on. So you're just saying that they would move to borrowing elsewhere, right?
Yes, they will sell
that
treasury
particular
bonds.
source,
They'll sell treasury bonds.
and that's bad, right?
What do you mean that's bad?
Well, according to this is not to be desired or approved of. Yeah.
What's not? Selling
The
treasury
fact-
bonds?
No, the fact that they would borrow from some other device other than Social Security.
What?
Dude,
Bro,
I don't
bro,
know how to
what?
make this any clearer.
Are you saying now I'm saying that borrowing is bad? Is that where we're at now? I'm at my claim.
Well,
is
you
now
said that
evolved
borrowing from Social
mass
Security is
deportations
bad.
do more harm than good. No, you said that. You brought that up.
Borrowing from well, then why would you want it in a lockbox?
You brought up the lockbox. That
And
was
you said we should do it.
No, you said why don't they? And I said they don't listen to Al Gore.
Okay, so then they should borrow from Social Security?
No, I don't think they should borrow at all. But that's just economically. I don't think that's like sometimes you need to borrow money. Like when we go to war, sometimes we have to borrow money. Sometimes we need to borrow money. We don't always have to borrow money.
Okay, got it. So do you think we shouldn't borrow money?
No, sometimes we should, sometimes we shouldn't.
Okay, so do you think that we should be borrowing money from Social Security?
Only if we absolutely have to.
Okay, so then we should avoid it, because after all, that would create a negative outcome, and we
Sure.
should avoid those when we can, right?
Sure, and if you increase the action that I have a problem with is them borrowing from Social Security. This argument could be used to say we should no longer collect taxes at all. We should no longer be able to borrow money at all. And maybe that's your position, which I don't know if you're libertarian. Is that your position, that you can't borrow money at all?
I didn't say that.
No, I'm just wondering.
No.
I mean, I would be far more comfortable with that, but I'm not. That doesn't mean that I should abandon an immigration position because it gives the government access to more
No,
money.
I'm saying you should abandon the immigration position, but you should abandon the immigration position that the government's going to intake far more money based on the fact that if we issue people Social Security numbers, people will pay into Social Security because, and here's why you should abandon that
I never
position.
made that. That wasn't my claim. Yeah, again,
Well, okay, then why should we give all these illegal immigrants? Then why? Okay, then why should we give all of these? Then why should we give all these illegal immigrants Social Security numbers again?
Because it makes the most fiscal sense.
Why?
Do I got to read the opening statement again?
Because they pay in, right?
They pay in. Two, if they are here legally, they're more likely to report things like crime. They invest into the schools locally.
Yeah, but let's just start with Social Security.
Okay.
So on Social Security, you want them to pay in on Social Security, right?
Sure.
And you want them to get the benefits of Social Security back out.
Sure.
But if it's the case that when the government borrows from Social Security and they're giving them these outward payouts after we give them Social Security numbers, the government's going more into debt, this would go into your rule that would be a negative outcome, and we should avoid those when we can.
I think that borrowing is not as much of a negative outcome against Social Security.
Okay, why?
Because it's money that gets paid back.
So wait a second, at interest?
Yeah, at interest.
Okay, then that would be a negative outcome, which should be avoided because it deliberately hurts the economy. That's your metric for bad.
But not all negative outcomes are the same.
Then we're back to your definition of bad. Deliberately hurting the economy, according to you, is bad.
We can no longer decide what. Oh yeah, so just all things are bad or good, and that's
according to
that's
you.
The whole fucking thing.
According to you,
according to you, discussion about
I'm giving you the discussion.
The most sensible thing to do.
Yes,
that's what I want to do, and I think the problem that we have.
So how? Yeah. So you said.
I'm trying to tell you.
Your definition of bad
Jesus.
I'm gonna. And this is why we could have cleared up the semantics, but you're so fucking stupid. Now you're gonna be at the mercy of them. Deliberately hurting deliberately hurting the economy.
The definition of bad all fucking day.
Yeah.
This is such
Sorry.
bullshit. It
Sorry.
really is the bitchiest
You can be as mad as you want, bro,
I'm not
but it's not
mad.
going to make you win. Yes, it should be avoided, you say. Yes, when it will have a negative outcome. Negative outcomes should be avoided when we can. You say that it's
can't
not.
avoid that.
Why can't you avoid it?
Because I don't run Congress.
Okay, well then I guess we can't
I
give
guess if
illegal
that's my
Social
definition,
Security
then
numbers then because you don't run Congress.
No, I can't.
No, I didn't say you. I said we.
Yeah, you and I cannot do that.
Okay,
That's
great.
correct.
So then legals will never get Social Security numbers because we don't run Congress. What
no,
a great
I think it's
argument.
because you guys are afraid of brown people. I think that's mostly what it is.
Okay, I'm willing to dive into that argument as well. What have I said tonight that said that I was afraid of brown people? And what do Republicans do that makes them afraid of brown people?
I said you guys in reference. It just seems like you're afraid of brown
it
people.
seems like that, does it?
It does.
Oh,
Yeah.
can you justify those seemings with something more tangible?
Yeah, I said it in my opening statement. I said that I feel like you guys are you're unwilling to engage about policy and about prescriptions.
That's
and
literally what we're engaging in.
And it seems, and I just said, I'm kind of left when you won't engage in anything that I said other than
Engaging in
let's define
everything.
good and bad. And you don't want to debate. You don't want to engage in this debate. And I know like what your principles are. I've heard you debate before. Like you want your view to rule. You like the force principle. You think that your tiny minority of people should be like the ruling class, and people should rule that think like you. And I don't know why you have a problem with this. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Explain to me why you want all these people deported if economically it's going to hurt us.
So here's the thing. I'm willing to give you the social arguments for why I think that this would be good versus bad. I'm happy to do that. But I would like a concession from you first that when I bring up by your own definitions what these things mean, and we could have easily just, if you would have just been a modicum good faith and we could have got the definitions out of the way, we could have got into the more of the meat like we were doing right then with Social Security.
Or we could just do that.
Yeah, but we were just doing that with Social Security and cried foul and said when I applied it to your definition of bad, that wasn't fair.
I didn't say that.
Okay, well then why can't I apply it to your definition of bad?
No, what I said is it seems like you're setting up a scenario where things are either good or bad.
Yeah.
And you can't, and I think that sometimes things are bad and you deal with it. Sometimes bad things happen and you just kind of
also said that they
and I think that sometimes what we get stuck with in these debates is we never talk about any sort of solution because we're so goddamn serious about proving like our worldview and proving that the other person's worldview is somehow flawed. So we never actually get to discuss what I'm here to discuss, which is what's the most sensible way to deal with the fact that we've got a lot of illegal immigrants here and there seems to be a divide in this country on how to handle it.
Okay, we can move right into that then next. I'll even humor you on this. I just want to point out, as you say this, that you said that negative outcomes should be avoided when we can, and then said there's things you just can't do anything about, which are bad. However, I just gave you an example of a negative outcome which could be avoided. You just said it's not possible because you're not in charge of Congress. I think that that's fucking idiotic, but I'm happy to move on to the next point of this, which is what can we do about this, right? What can we do that's the most sensible? Well, okay, here's what we can do that's the most sensible. We can mobilize the National Guard, put them on the border with orders to shoot to kill, and we can deport every immigrant who's here. That would not only save us a small fortune in the cost of drugs coming across the border, human trafficking costs, and what we have to deal with the Department of Justice and all of these fronts, simply do not have
to back that
people
up?
who are here.
any
Yes.
numbers on
In
that?
fact, I'm going to give you one of the most comprehensive studies, 1 second, which will point out the human trafficking epidemic which comes with open borders.
I'm not supporting open borders. What are we debating here?
Well,
We're debating mass deportations. I don't support open borders.
Yeah, mass deportations. Now, how is it that these people get here?
Most of them on visa overstays.
Not from south of the border, right?
Certainly. It's like 90% of people that are here on almost everybody that we're picking up that's at work. They've been here for 15, 20 years. And most
From
of them
visas?
You can come here on vacation and you can just stay. Most people don't sneak across the border. Most people come across legally and stay.
Okay, so then it sounds like one possible way and solution that we can do to handle this is make sure that if you don't leave on your visa, that we have a system in place to come collect you quickly, then bar you from the nation for life.
I agree with that. I think we should do that.
Okay, yeah, I agree. So then as far as the solution comes, what we should do is bar you from life. You overstay on a visa. We have a system in place to come collect you very quickly if you do overstay on the visa. What's your objection to us deploying the United States military to the border to make sure that there's no illegal border crossings there with drugs
I don't
and
have an
human
objection to
trafficking?
that. I have no objection to that.
Okay, so then it sounds like the best thing that we can possibly do is remove the illegal immigrants who are here and also
That's
make
where we
it...
disagree. That's the part we disagree on.
Okay, so let's just say for a second that I was willing to have a compromise with you. Every illegal immigrant who's here will grant them amnesty and give them all a Social Security number. However, we are also going to deploy the United States military to the border. They're not going to allow any more illegal crossings. They'll have literal orders that these are invaders, right, and to repel them as an invasionary force, and that anybody who comes in and overstays their visa is banned for life, and that we have a new federal agency which goes and collects them as quickly as fucking possible to remove them. Would you agree to that compromise?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well then, what are we arguing here?
The mass deportations of the people that are here, the millions of people that are here already. The cost alone to deport these people is near $1 trillion. And
So
when I'm looking at these people that they're going and that they're rounding up, these people are doing no harm. These are people who are their only crime, like 75% of the people from LA that they have rounded up. 75% of them have committed exactly one crime, that crime is being here illegally.
Yeah, so what?
I think that the cost of doing that doesn't make any fucking sense, especially when we have this will permanently close some businesses. This will devastate local economies, and it will take a very long time to get back into those local economies and rebuild them. It's not like you remove them and all these job seekers come in and fill those jobs. Economically, it makes no sense. We're going to lose a bunch of tax revenue, and it's going to cost us like $1 trillion, plus all the things that you want to do as far as securing our southern border. We want to do, sure, yeah. Everything that we would do to secure our southern border, it's going to be incredibly expensive. I see no return on that investment. It makes absolutely fiscally no sense to remove people willing to work who are causing harm to nobody. Let them stay.
Do you agree with me that you should speak the language of the nation if you want? You don't agree with that?
You maybe finish it. Maybe there was was there a qualifier at the end of that? I interrupted.
I don't even think we need to go any further than that. Then, if you don't think that you should speak the language of the nation before we give you amnesty?
No, but I do think that you're going to be disadvantaged.
Yeah, but who else is disadvantaged by that?
By people not speaking the language. I don't know. Maybe somebody who thinks they should get the job just because they speak English.
Well, how about hospitals? How about schools? How about places like this where people don't speak the language, and so additional resources need to be allocated to them so that they do speak the language?
I don't know that they're disadvantaged. I don't know that that's being disadvantaged, right?
Well, wouldn't that be a disadvantage to our native-born people to have to outsource this into now special categorizations just to get these people up and running with basic words in English?
No, I don't see how that disadvantages anybody.
So you don't think that schools spending additional cash and resources with ELS is disadvantageous to the native-born people there who could be collecting those resources?
Well, I think we're going to be collecting those we're going to be collecting new taxes anyways. I think maybe if local
now schools that's assessed by property taxes.
I've seen proposals where people part of like the amnesty is that they have a remittance fee. Maybe it's a 1% tax. I'm actually okay with that too. If there are local costs that are going to be applied to the local economy, I think local communities should be able to assess that tax.
Yeah, so anyway, back to the ELS thing. How could it be possible that your property tax assessment, which is going towards schools along with generous federal grants, which are going to schools, how is it possible that they'll be spending less resources by not hiring ELS-specific educators to train English first language to these other people instead of utilizing those resources on the locality of the natives who are there, who are paying through their local property taxes for the education of their children.
I didn't say they wouldn't pay more tax. I said nobody would be disadvantaged.
How would that not be disadvantageous to the people paying more taxes?
Because, like I just said, you're adding people into the pool of taxpayers, and if you want to pass that cost,
Not property tax,
and
not property tax.
They pay property tax all the time. And
they only pay property tax if they own property. Can you tell me how many of these people own property?
Tenants. I just said as tenants.
Oh, as tenants they pay property. No, as tenants they don't pay property tax. They pay rent. No, they don't indirectly pay it. No.
Yes, they do.
No, it's directly assessed from the owner.
Listen, I don't know.
Yes, I'm a landholder. Yes, that's correct.
So am I. I don't know a single landlord that doesn't factor in property taxes when they charge rent.
Okay, so wait a second. So who's paying the property tax?
I said indirectly. Indirectly, they're paying property taxes.
So then they're not paying property taxes.
Well, the landlord isn't being disadvantaged. He's already paying that money into the community.
No, the landlord may not have as high a property tax assessment if they didn't have to spend more on localized school for things like language assessment, right?
Yeah, taxes go up to pay for education. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, so taxes. So what you're saying here then is that the net drain from people who don't even speak the language of the nation, there's going to be a net drain on landholders because their property,
I just said they could pay a 1% tax.
Their property taxes would necessarily go up. Even if you had a 1% remittance fee, can you show me the math on how that would offset the local property taxes?
I said a 1% tax or a remittance fee.
But the remittances are assuming that these monies are going to go back to Mexico, right?
What?
The remittances are assuming that this money is going to go elsewhere to a different nation?
No, I don't know if it assumes that.
Then how do you get remittances?
Maybe I'm using the word remittances incorrectly.
I think you are.
I might be. Am I using?
How do you get a remittance?
Never mind. Yeah, I am using the word.
Yes, you're using the word wrong.
Sorry.
It's semantics, those fucking semantics.
Yeah, what I meant is they'll pay a penalty.
A penalty?
Yeah, for being here illegally when they, as part of their citizenship.
So they get an increase of 1% in their taxes,
or a one-time lump.
Which kind of taxes?
I think you would have to probably
assess the income tax.
No, I think you would have to. I think that you would have to pay 1% tax base. Yeah, I guess on the income tax. Yeah, sure.
It would just be on the income. So that again doesn't solve our issue with property holders and their taxes going up, does it?
Why not?
Well, because property holders paying a property tax on top of their income tax.
They're already paying that tax that goes into schools.
Yes, but the problem that you have here is that they would be paying less of that tax, which goes to schools, if they weren't having more of their resources allocated to non-English speaking students.
I don't think necessarily the taxes would go up.
Okay, can you demonstrate it?
Yeah, they're already paying for these, like the children that are in school. The property taxes are already paying for them. So why would it go up?
Do you understand that if it is the case that you have 30 people in a community and your taxes are assessed for that via property taxes, and there's some sort of levy which is passed, what would be on the ballot would be for those 30 people, those 30 families, and they would give an assessment based on that. If it is the case that now you increase the amount of, let's say, non-English speaking children who are
We're not increasing that number. Why would we increase that number?
So you're saying that right now these non-English speaking students are going to these schools?
Yes. And I factored that into my numbers earlier.
Well, that's perfect. So then if we got rid...
So if they're paying taxes...
So if we got rid...
Wouldn't that mean that the landowners or the landlords, that some of that would be offset? Potentially some of these people who are here illegally could purchase properties and they could pay property tax
So what you're saying is, to get this right, that right this second... property owners are subsidizing illegal children so that they can learn the language of the nation. And do you think that that's okay because they're already paying it? So if you just gave these students somehow a social security number rather than deporting them, that somehow is going to decrease property taxes?
No, it changes nothing.
I see.
It stays exactly the same.
No, it would necessarily, if you deported them, go down, right? Because now there's less students there to support?
Yeah, maybe.
Well, then
Are you going to pay teachers less?
So I just want to make sure that I got this right.
Wait, why would it go down necessarily?
Because you're paid inside of schools by the seats. That's how you're paid. So you have X. Why do you think they take roll call in a school? Johnny here. That's dollars, right? Timmy here. That's dollars. They're paid by the number of students who are in seats. So by your argument of saying, again, bad, deliberately hurting economy, and that should be avoided, when it will have a negative outcome. Negative outcomes are to be avoided when we can. This sounds like a negative outcome, which we can quickly avoid by simply deporting non-English speaking students along with their parents if they're here illegally.
Yeah, I don't think that outweighs the other economic benefits of keeping them here.
Oh, the other economic benefits.
Yeah.
So what economic benefits?
That's what I said. Like, you want to do this about principles, but I'm just looking at in totality. I've already factored these numbers in. I did that in my opening statement. I already said that the cities that are a net negative when it comes to immigration, most of that comes from educating these children already. That's already factored into my numbers.
So it's already a negative, and can we avoid that negative?
Yeah, but then we lose out on revenue, and then that negative becomes larger.
And if I grant this, that there are cases in which this revenue is going to be saved by the taxpayer, especially the property holder, even if I were to grant that in some ways we may lose some revenue from a second-class citizenry that you want to keep here desperately, would you say that when you're talking about social issues,
make them second class? What do you mean by that?
They are second class, yeah.
I know. What do you mean by that? I'm not trying to be offended.
They're completely disenfranchised from the nation, used only for the exploitative labor of massive farms, usually.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So anyway, back to this, though. Would you say that there's social offsets, when we look at the totality of the good of the nation, that you need to look at both economic and social ramifications inside of the nation for any policy which you pass?
I think that's I think it could be important. Sure.
Yeah. So when you factor in the GDP, if I grant the GDP, can you tell me what the positive social ramifications are
of amnesty?
Yes.
Yeah, I think more social cohesion.
How?
I think that specifically here I live in a border state. One of the problems we have, especially in neighborhoods that get overrun by gangs, is that you have a bunch of people unwilling to call the police, unwilling to report crimes, because either they or somebody they love's status is in jeopardy, or even now there's people who don't want to because they think that even if they do have legal status, they may be deported. I don't know if you know much about the history of Arizona.
I just want to make sure I got this right, and tell me if my steel man's incorrect. It makes sense to me logically. If you're here illegally, you don't want to call and report a crime because then your own status could be in question, and then you could get shipped out of the very country you're in, right? Mm-hmm. So, of course, it would create more positive social cohesion if we just granted the citizenship, and then therefore those people wouldn't mind reporting the said crimes, right?
Sure, in some cases.
Yeah. Isn't that also the case if we deported them? If we deported those people, wouldn't it also be the case that we would have a net income or a net increase to social cohesion? We also would be eliminating this problem of people who aren't citizens reporting crimes. Yeah.
No, I think that's dumbing it down to a single issue.
I'm going one issue at a time. We're just talking about this one.
So let me make sure. Let me steelman this. You're saying that if 1-to-1, if we deport these people, that also could increase social cohesion?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so if this is the case, then when I ask you for why this would create more social cohesion, that actually wasn't an answer on that, because if we deported them, that would create just as much. Actually, it may create more social cohesion, because if they're not there to have to report that they're the victims of crimes, we don't ever have to worry about them to begin with as far as the social fabric of society goes, right?
Sure. But I think you leave out the people that are going to be feel like their society betrayed them or their government betrayed them for deporting these people. I agree that there are maybe people, I don't know what your thoughts are, but there's people probably like Steve and I debated who would be very happy to see everybody that looks different in his neighborhood deported.
But
however,
I would just negate this to the contrary.
There are also people in that neighborhood who that would cause less social cohesion.
Yeah,
I think it's almost impossible to measure.
But do you understand that the argument to the contrary will work there just as much, that the government betrayed them by giving them status when an overwhelming majority of people who also voted Trump into office to do just this, Trump didn't do this, they would also feel equally betrayed. So again, that's not good for social cohesion either.
I'm looking at polling. I don't think it's my contention that most people who voted for Trump didn't vote for this. I think most people who voted for Trump voted to get violent criminals out, because that's all they ever talked about. And there's been very public figures. There's been very public figures like Andrew Schultz, who just came out and said, this isn't what I voted for. I voted to go out. Joe Rogan has said the same thing. There's whatever that number is. There's a not insignificant
Those are moderates,
amount.
by the way.
Yeah, but they also voted for him. So I'm just saying, like,
but they voted for. But many of those people may have voted for him because Kamala was worse.
Maybe, but there are people that are saying, I voted for this, and this isn't what's happening.
That is what the hard line of Trump MAGA base did indeed vote for.
I agree.
So the thing is like when you're talking, I'm just saying that I can negate that position with the same alternative position. You still haven't made, so I'd like to move to your next argument then. If this one's negated, what is the next social cohesion benefit that we would be getting here by not deporting these people?
I don't think that my argument today has much to do with social cohesion. I think social cohesion is so subjective and impossible to measure that I think that it's a bit pointless to argue, to be honest.
Well, I don't think it's pointless to argue, and I don't think that it's a metric which is not easily measured. You can look at things like voting patterns and what it is that the will of the people is when it comes to who they want to migrate to their countries or not. You can look at riots, and you can look at all sorts of different metrics to kind of see if there's social upheavals based on social cohesion. I think it's a very important metric, in fact.
Well, let's talk about the social upheavals.
Hang on. Let me finish. So the thing is that if I grant the economic argument, say our GDP may increase by a couple of percentage points by doing this, your whole point is if it does more harm than it does good. But if you grant that social cohesion to a nation is at least as important as GDP, and I would argue it's more important, but if you would at least argue it's at least as important, then you would have to not just make an argument for how it would make more money. For instance, I can import black slaves. That would definitely make us a lot more money. There's no doubt about that. Right. But I'm guessing that would be really bad for social cohesion. And that's what you would base your objections on. And I think that that's completely fair. So if this is the case, I need your arguments for how this makes us a more socially cohesive nation, not to just go ahead and spend the money. As you pointed out, the government's going to spend it anyway. They don't give a shit. Why not just let them spend it to remove Hispanic and other overstayed visa holders back to their nations of origin? If they're going to spend it anyway, you might as well spend it on something which moves us towards social cohesion. Can you negate that?
What I was trying to say is I think it's really, really difficult to define social cohesion. For example, your viewpoints are a very, very, very small minority of the viewpoints of this country.
What are my viewpoints?
I would argue the ones that you're addressing now. Your Christian nationalist viewpoint. I don't know if you call them that.
No, I'm not. No, social cohesion.
Let me just explain. Okay. I just didn't want to mislabel you. I don't know if you consider yourself a Christian nationalist, whatever they might be. I've just watched you debate, so I don't know specifically how you label yourself.
I think that if you labeled me anything, it would have nothing to do with my views on social cohesion. I think if you had a Marxist nation, you would be using similar metrics for what social cohesion is.
Agreed.
People who are in some way unified under singular ideology, a single language, and single borders for the purposes of some goal, in this case, the purposes of advancing the interests of the nation. I think that hang on, I'm almost done.
Well,
I think that
my answer.
I think that multiculturalism most often seems to bring in a lack of social cohesion, does not add to it.
Yeah, so and I think that's why I've heard you reference Michael Savage's like 3 pillars, which are borders, language, and culture.
Yeah,
culture. Culture. I just think that when we're talking about social cohesion, if I look at polling, if I look at mass demonstrations, polling, the pulse of this country, the world's most popular podcast, maybe the 3rd or 4th most popular podcast, they don't seem to align with you. That you seem to be the problem for them. Your viewpoints seem to be causing the social divide here, and you are in a minority position. So
what about the world's most popular?
So granting your position, I think, would be a net negative on social cohesion. I think more people would be upset if you got your way than if I got my way.
Yeah, so if you were to, let's say, you barred all illegal immigrants from the nation and you deported all the ones that are here, are you saying that you think that the ones who were left behind would riot about it and be upset about it?
No, I'm talking about people here legally, American citizens.
Yeah, okay. Do you think that they would do that?
They are doing that.
And do you think that the opposition is true, that if it were the case that you did not do this, that you would have very upset people on the other side?
I don't think even close to the same
Maybe
numbers.
not, but you still think that there would be very many upset people on the other side, right?
Yeah, but again, if
So
we're
how's
talking
that
about
good for social cohesion?
well, I don't think either of them are good for social
not, well,
cohesion.
that right.
So I
But
have- so
what's
I'm
the
gonna-
common
I'm gonna-
denominator? What's the
Andrew, would you
common
mind-
denominator,
Andrew, would you,
bro?
I'm letting you speak. Just let me finish this little part. I agree that I don't think you have a clear path forward here where there won't be social or where there social cohesion won't be affected. What I'm saying is that I think if we're going to talk about social cohesion, we have to talk about like what's the majority view here. Because if you take the majority view, I think you're going to have less problems. But if you take the minority view, I think you're going to have a lot more problems.
Let's assume for a second that the majority view was that we should deport, and it was 51%. Would you still be against it?
I would, but I think you would have.
Well,
a
then
better,
it's negated.
But
Then it's
I think-
negated. It
but
doesn't
hold
matter.
on.
It's irrelevant.
No. I would personally, but I would think you had a better argument. If I thought a majority of people were siding with you, I would still state my case, but I would grant your point that actually it would cause more social cohesion if more people thought like you. I just don't think they do.
Yeah, but the point is that the common denominator between both ends of the fence, even if I was in the minority in my view that you should deport them all and you were in the majority, whatever that is, right? I don't think that you would say that I'm in the vast majority or you would say that you are. You could maybe
think I
say
am.
that you're in the vast majority. How much more?
I think so. I think it's probably like a 70-30 issue.
70-30. Mm-hmm. Okay. Let's assume even that. I'll just grant it. I think that that's absurd. You couldn't demonstrate it in a million years. I would love if you did, but I don't think you can. But I'll just
I
grant
could show new polling from Gallup that said like 67% currently of Americans disapprove of the way Trump is handling immigration.
Yeah, but that doesn't tell us that they don't want the immigrants deported.
That's true. That's true. And I think that polling has changed. I think that in November, you saw much higher numbers of people saying they wanted immigrants deported. But when they saw, and again, my problem
But
with
what's the
Trump,
common denominator between both sides here? Even if I grant your position or you grant mine, the common denominator is the illegal immigrants themselves, meaning that we already have the thing we can point to for the social cohesion problem to begin with.
Sure.
In other words, the very idea here that this is allowed at all, right, is the thing that we can point to that's causing this social disturbance to begin with. So the elimination of this social disturbance for social cohesion purposes seems like something you and I would agree to. You're just arguing degree.
No, I don't agree with that because what you're talking about.
How can you fight over people who aren't here?
The part that they are here. That's the point. If they
but they wouldn't be if we deported them.
I know, but they are, and we have to deal with reality. Your position makes a whole lot of fucking sense if there's nobody here, and if everybody in America is like, should we bring 13 million people in here overnight? I think overwhelmingly, including myself, Americans would say no, that's ridiculous. But we're faced with a situation here that they're already here, and people have humanity and people have emotional connections. And if we're talking about social cohesion, we're talking about a broad variety of views, and I think yours is more in the minority than mine is.
Let's show just how often this has changed. If you go back just 1 year, do you agree that the polls were wildly different on how it pertained to doing mass deportations or not?
Yeah, can I add a qualifier to that?
Sure.
I think that the polls were different, but nobody knew Trump was going to do it this way. And I think that now that he's doing it this way, that's what's causing the change.
I agree. So if that's the case, it's probably more likely that more people agree with me that they should be deported. You just don't like how they're deporting them.
Yeah, but that's changing now. Those numbers are changing now.
Yeah, but they're not there for you. They're there for me. And so when you look at
they're there for me. They're changing in my direction.
Show me.
I just cited the Gallup poll
Which says
that people do not approve of the way that Trump's doing deportations.
Not that they disapprove of deportations.
That's what I just said.
No,
I just
they don't
said
approve of how he's handling him.
That's what I said. I said last year, and the caveat I added to it is that people were guessing, and now that it's here and it's really happening, they're against it.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, they liked it, but when they saw what it's doing, all of a sudden there's a very visceral reaction to it, and that is destroying social cohesion.
So if it is the case then that these people are deported, right, in a way that people do approve of, right, but they are deported, right, that would be good for social cohesion?
Yeah, I think that if you were not going through and destroying community trust, workplace trust, I think that a lot of the problem that we have here is the lack of humanity with the way that we are doing deportations. Nobody rioted when Trump deported people his first time around. Nobody rioted when Obama did it. Nobody rioted when Bush did, because most of what they did is they took people at the border and they sent them back, and then they gave people their due process and they deported people after going through immigration courts. But this administration seems to purposely skip that. They're seeking people out at court. They're seeking out people at school. They're seeking out people at work. And it seems like the cruelty is kind of the point for them. And that's what people object to.
So then when we look at this proposition, then it is a moral question, isn't it?
For a lot of people, yeah, sure.
No, period. When we're talking about whether it does more harm than good, what we're really talking about is a moral proposition, not of if removing these people from the nation is morally bad for the purposes of social cohesion. You've agreed that that can be fine. It's the methodology that you find immoral or that people object to. So this is actually a moral question, isn't it?
To them, to me, I find no matter what, I'm going to be in favor of amnesty, even if I'm the position that I've said, like no matter what everybody else thinks, I'm going to be in favor of amnesty. But if 80% of the country was like you, I'd just have to eat it. And I don't think that it would have near the effect on social cohesion. So yes, I agree, for a lot of people, this is a moral issue and they have a visceral reaction to it. But there's also a financial component to it, which I think leads to a good argument to say, because there's a financial benefit, why don't we take everybody who's not committing crimes and let's give them amnesty? Let's be done with this. Because then you could take all those resources that we just gave to ICE, and instead of raiding communities and schools and hospitals and courthouses, we can focus that on the border. We can focus it on human trafficking. We can focus it on drug running. We can focus it on a lot of important things. This seems so
descriptively, that's not what happens, though, is it? Like under Biden's administration, he made very lofty promises to the same degree. And that's not what happened. Instead, they were busing. They had convoys of people coming in fact, and they were enabled in doing this. And that caused
in 2019.
That caused a counter visceral reaction. No, I'm not talking about those convoys. I'm talking about under Biden. There was convoys as well.
The convoys started in 2019, though.
What does that have to do with anything? That was as an objection to Trump, and that was, by the way, orchestrated by NGOs. And you fucking know.
Bro, what the fuck? No, it's because we went in and we staged a coup in Venezuela, and then we stopped buying their oil, which is 80% of their economy. We took 50% of their oil purchases, and we stopped buying it. We crashed their economy overnight because, and it was so bad that Trump, on his way out the door, wrote an executive order giving protected status to Venezuelans due to his administration's actions in Venezuela. Don't give me this like, that was because they were mad at Trump. No, it's because we interfere everywhere and we decimate economies.
So
and then
to get this right, to get this right, huge Democrat NGOs, non-government organizations weren't involving in the planning and the execution of those convoys, and they weren't giving them aid every step of the way. There wasn't massive amounts of media who were following them, giving them 24-hour coverage at the behest of their donors. None of that happened, huh?
No, that all happened, but that's not why they were coming.
Yeah, that all happened. Exactly.
They were coming so that somebody would help them along the way.
No, I think
that sounds like good Christian people to me.
I think
that see a bunch of people fleeing their country because their country is decimated. Maybe I grant you that. I think there's a lot of people that grandstand off of immigration. I agree with
it's opportunistic. And so the thing is
people didn't want to leave.
But help me
Venezuela.
out. But help me out here.
This
is what I don't get.
Wait. We just have to start. If we're going to be honest here, we can't pretend that these people decided to come to America because NGOs are like, hey, we'll help you along the way.
I think it is. Yeah.
Well, then explain to me why they
I'll explain.
I didn't ask the question. Explain to me why they weren't coming in masses, and then we staged a coup in Venezuela. We stopped buying their oil, and then they came.
Because you have to have a correct political environment to stage these things. The same exact thing I would point to would be the most recent riots, which happened in California. If you don't have the correct political conditions, NGOs cannot orchestrate how these things operate. So the same thing happens in ICE raid, let's say, at a Home Depot in California, leads to a bunch of very organic riots, right?
So what are the conditions here that you're talking about?
They weren't organic. Well,
So what
in
are the
this case,
conditions
you
that they
take a
took advantage of?
catastrophe where people say, well, there's a humanitarian crisis. That's
Why was there a humanitarian
That's
crisis?
a great well, regardless of why, I'm just explaining to you the process.
It's important.
Let's just say let's just say for a second, just for the sake of argument, because the United States lobbed a fucking nuke and nuked Venezuela, and so all the refugees are heading this way.
Let's just say that they staged a coup and it didn't, and it
Sure.
failed. And then
we'll just say whatever. Yeah, it does. It's irrelevant to the point, though.
No,
it's irrelevant
that's what
to the point.
Started it.
It's irrelevant to my point. If we lobbed a fucking nuke, it wouldn't matter. It's irrelevant to my point. My point is that would create whatever the conditionals are for NGOs to begin to come in and point to, this is a humanitarian crisis, therefore the United States needs to solve it against whatever our own border policies are and our own interests are.
Yeah, so don't drop a nuke, right?
Because NGOs have their own interests. But even if we
don't
did
drop a nuke, right?
even if we did drop a nuke, let's just say, we still don't have to, as a conditional of that, let tens of thousands or millions of people in this country.
Well,
That's
we did.
absurd.
We actually did. We had to.
Did what? No, we didn't.
Had to let. Yeah, we did.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't.
We have amnesty laws.
Yes. Well, so these are things that we can get rid of, right?
Okay, I agree with you. I agree
Yeah.
with you. But what happened? We tried to change the amnesty laws, and Trump said, "Fuck that! I want to win. I want to campaign on this." So James Lankford, we're not voting for your bill. Then he campaigned on, look at all this shit that's happening at the border, while the Republicans sat with two thumbs in their ass and did nothing. I agree with you. I was an advocate for James Lankford's bill. And by the way, we're now 6 months into this presidency, full control of the House.
That is
the
not
Senate,
why.
and
Tell
hold
us
on,
the
hold
real
on, let me
reason
finish,
why the
let me
amnesty
finish.
bill was killed.
House, Senate, and presidency, and we still haven't fixed our amnesty
What else
laws,
was
have we?
added? What else was added in the amnesty bill?
Are you talking about the Ukraine funding?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happened is, the whole story is, they said, the Democrats said, we want to fund Ukraine. And the Republicans said, we won't fund Ukraine unless you write a border bill. And they're like, cool. Who do you want to write it? They're like, James Lankford. He's our most conservative. So he worked on a bipartisan measure in the Senate. They came up with what Lindsey Graham called the most conservative border bill in the history of this country.
Lindsey Graham, the least conservative guy?
I'm just telling you what he said.
The least conservative guy?
Listen, but
he came up with the most conservative bill, bro.
Don't tell me Lindsey Graham's not conservative on the border. Get out of here with that.
He's not conservative on anything.
But so the Republicans asked to send a bill, and they brought the bills together. And what did the Republicans do? Mike Johnson said, never mind. We're going to split these bills up. And they took the Senate bill about immigration, and they set it over here because Trump wanted to keep running on immigration. And they took the Ukraine bill, and they put it on the House floor, and they voted for it, and they passed it. So they only passed the Ukraine bill, and they refused to pass the immigration bill. Because
by
Donald
whose majority?
Trump,
Hang on. The House
Mike
by
Johnson,
whose majority?
Mike Johnson. Hang
on.
That bill.
So let's count the number of Democrats to Republican bills or Republican votes on it, shall we?
They didn't vote on it. He wouldn't bring it to the floor.
I'm sorry. I thought you just said they voted on it.
No, I said he took the immigration bill and he set it aside.
No, I'm talking about the Ukraine bill.
And they voted on the Ukraine bill standalone, and it passed.
And how many votes, Democrat versus Republican?
I don't know, but enough Republicans
You
voted.
should fucking know, because that's an important, pertinent piece of this.
You said that's why they didn't pass the fucking immigration bill.
They didn't.
But
Okay.
they passed that one.
So I just want to make sure when they split the bill,
vote on it.
I'm just going to make sure before I shove this up your ass, when they split the bill, right? When you say they split the bill, there was nothing else inside of second bill, right?
I don't know if there was some extra pork spending. I don't know.
Oh, no. Oh, come on, dude. You don't know?
Do you know?
Yeah, I do. I want to know. Was there?
What was in the Ukraine bill?
Was there? Not the Ukraine bill, the immigration bill. The split off.
Yeah, it was immigration and Ukraine funding.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but when it's split.
They didn't vote on the immigration bill. They did
nothing
with it.
Was there anything else which was demanded for that bill?
Not that I know of. Do you know of something?
Nothing.
Not that I know of.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat. And I would like to when I put this in, right? I'd like for you to read it out loud.
Sure.
Also, on top of that, I would just like to point out that you actually didn't make a single refutation about any of the NGOs which are operating within the confines, especially of the DNC, which assisted in orchestrating those convoys. And on top of that,
I agreed with you.
Still haven't made a single
agreed with you on that.
You still haven't made a single argument about how social cohesion is increased, except the volatility
I never
of
said
the
it
mob.
did increase.
Yeah, well then, if it's the case that you just bank everything on GDP, every one of your arguments is just GDP go up, it's good, regardless of social cohesion.
Your social cohesion, you can't prove your social cohesion. It's just your thought.
Bro,
I think it'll go up. I think it'll go down.
Okay. I'll tell you what. Tell me a single social upheaval in recent memory, okay, that wasn't due to my diversity is my fucking strength. One.
The diversity is my strength?
Yeah. To my diversity. What recent social any social or any social uprising that you can think of inside of the United States and even the last 50 years, can you point to any of them that didn't have to do with the fact that we had a lack of social cohesion due to the massive influx of immigrants to the nation?
Sure, Black Lives Matters. I don't think that was immigrant based.
No.
Do you think it was immigrant based?
Yeah, I think that the compadres of BLM, who were the most avid advocates,
who
attached themselves to the to BLM itself, were mostly minorities.
What do you mean BLM itself?
Yeah, so let me explain. Hispanics and other minorities often have a habit of adopting black victimhood. So they'll say all these horrible things happen to black people throughout history. I would even agree that this is true. But they didn't happen to Hispanics throughout history, but they'll often, other minorities will adopt themselves to black victimization in order to advocate their various causes. This also happened with BLM. BLM was not organic at all. This was completely NGO based. It was not organic in the least. In fact, I can give you all of the various actor organizations which contributed millions of dollars to various BLM funds.
So when me and my friends went to BLM rallies, that wasn't organic. That was just NGO based.
Yeah, how did you hear about them?
Facebook.
Facebook. And the Facebook groups that you were a part of, were they called things like...
I wasn't part of any Facebook groups.
So how did you hear about them on Facebook?
People would share the links.
To what?
To Facebook.
To what on Facebook?
To the protest. It would be like
the protest. Did people organize these protests?
Yeah.
They did. Interesting. Can you show me any of those links of the protest organizers that aren't linked to an NGO?
What? I don't understand this. I think
I know you don't understand this, which is why we're going through it.
Andrew,
can you name for me
hold
a
on,
single one of these Facebook links for these protests that
Andrew,
aren't linked to an NGO?
Let me just clarify. To you, an NGO is any organization that's non-governmental,
a non-government organization which is organized for political action, in this case, would be an NGO.
Oh, no. They're certainly through NGOs.
Yes, all of them were through fucking NGOs. So when you say Black Lives Matter had nothing to do with the social cohesion of minorities.
You said immigration. You said immigration.
Bro, no, I said minorities.
Sarah, back me up there. He said immigration, right?
No, due to immigration. The minority influx due to
immigration.
It is due to immigration. Those minorities would not be here. Those minorities.
I was there because of immigration?
Yes, actually, I'll explain how.
I was in Phoenix, like almost everybody there. Like
do you want me to explain it?
80% of the people there that were white.
Do you want me to explain it or not?
Yeah, but just like after I'm done talking.
Oh, okay. Well, then don't ask me. You just asked me a question. So I was there because of blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, tell me why I was there.
Yeah, so here's why you were there. You were there because you clicked on an NGO-funded link. Many of those NGOs.
How do you know it was funded?
Well, I'll explain that too. Especially
well, you don't know what link I clicked on, and you're assuming it's funded now?
You yourself said that it was an NGO, non-government funded organization.
Funded.
Yeah, funded.
NGOs. That's what I asked. I said, is every group a non-governmental agency and NGO? You said yes. Does that require funding?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the groups. How do you know that the group that I clicked on was funded?
Okay, so just to get this right, you don't think that these groups were funding their own protests?
I think there are a lot of groups that are funded, and I think there are a lot of them that are grassroots. And you are putting a blanket
who
over
also
them
have
saying
funding.
That they're all funded. No, the grassroots ones don't always have funding.
Okay, so how do they organize then?
They just word of mouth on Facebook. It's free. I don't know if you have Facebook. You just sign up.
So they don't have links to like GoFundMe's?
You can make your own.
Yeah, they don't have links to GoFundMe's?
Not to protest. There was no GoFundMe.
Yeah, to protest. Yes, there was. Yes, I bet you anything there was.
Not the ones
if you could tell me, I'll tell you what. You tell me it's not crazy. That's what they do. They utilize.
If you're making this claim that all of these are paid for, it's up to you to show that all of them were paid for.
Okay,
I'm waiting for that.
Okay. If you have a grassroots campaign, let's say, how do you organize it?
If I had a grassroots campaign, I would organize it through social media. I have a Discord.
You would organize it through social media.
I have TikTok. I would make graphics. I would have them share them out. We would probably create a Facebook group, perhaps a WhatsApp group, and we would share that out, and everybody could join, and we could do stuff together. We've done stuff like that in the Discord.
So would you organize for transportation?
You could.
Would you?
If it was far away, sure.
Okay. Would you organize for things like water and food?
Probably not. I don't know. I've never been given water and food. I've never been given water and food at a protest.
But you would at least organize for transportation?
Sure, but by carpooling.
Would that require funding?
No, just carpooling.
Oh, it's just carpooling. That's it.
Yeah.
So these
That's how I got there. We carpool.
So these massive to get this right, these massive organic just from your view, these massive organic organizations. It was all organic, by the way.
I didn't say
they just went. They just went on Facebook.
You said all of them were funded. I said some are organic and some aren't. You're making the claim.
Yeah, they all have trickle down funding.
All of them were funded.
Yeah, they have trickle down funding.
No,
yes, they do.
Substantiate that.
Actually, I can substantiate that.
Then do.
Okay, I will. So let's start with how the media complex works in.
Fuck out of here! No, show me the documents, please.
For which thing?
For that, all of them are funded.
Yes, I'll literally explain this logically. I can actually show you documents for this.
I want documents.
I'm going to do both.
It's
my turn. Yeah, I'll do both. I'll show you all the NGO funding. So the case is that when you start with mass media groups, most mass media groups are NGO funded. Most of them are NGO, non-government organizations which fund media. Fox News is in the pocket of NGO.
Are you funded, by the way?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not mass media.
I was just wondering. Well, there's people that are smaller than you that get funding, so I was just wondering.
Yes, there are. Luckily, I can make the claim. I have only ever one time read an advertisement on stream for CBD because that was like an ad that came up. I didn't even read the ad, but I'm 100% audience funded and always have been.
I love that.
Yeah, and anyway, so that aside, if you start looking at the trickle down from media down. Let's start with the idea of how mass media operates. They all operate through NGO, non-government organizational funding. Now, many of them actually have government organizational funding that they trickle through NGOs. This is why Fox News, right-wing, CNN, dialectically left-wing. It's because the NGO donors who are sending into them, they have a certain agenda that they want to get pushed through that media complex. That's why Democrats often will use CNN, MSNBC, and they'll use their specific NGO funders in order to push that money through, and the same thing with Fox News. If any of this stuff with George Floyd, which trickled down from the idea of these top-level organizations, which would be the mass media, are funded by NGOs, all of these supposedly organic protests that you're talking about are actually being influenced by NGOs as well. Yes, they're all
funded, not influenced.
That is funding. It's just funding which is displays trickle down.
Wait, hold on. Influence is funding?
Yes, of course.
By what definition is influence funding?
Well, listen, if you do a thing
I need a definition. Now it's your turn.
I'll give it to you.
I need you to explain to me how funding is influence, please.
Yeah, so in fact, I would say most funding is influence, and most funders use influencers, either in the mass media or even now it's been moving on to YouTube, Twitch. I don't know if you've ever heard of Progressive Victory. That's a massive Twitch PAC. Yeah, I'll explain it. It's a massive Twitch PAC which bought up almost every Twitch streamer, including Destiny, including Vosh, including Wick, including all these people. Wick, in fact, right now, who frequents Sarah's channel, I believe still gets money from Progressive Victory, same as Counterpoints. The thing is that they use this particular NGO, Progressive Victory, uses these Twitch streamers in order to organize, right? And what they do is they go ahead and they put out all these promos, and then their little, like minions, right? They'll organize without any money at all. And you would say, that's all grassroots. No, fucker, that's not grassroots. And what that actually is,
I didn't say
an
that.
NGO. What it actually is, hang on, stop. No, I'm not. Let me finish. That's actually a bunch of fucking NGOs which are trickle down funding the idea that you, the guy who just clicked the Facebook link and it was all fucking organic. It was all totally organic. There's no NGOs involved. Yeah, there was fucking NGOs involved, fucker. Yes, there was.
Get it out. Yeah, that was fucking stupid. Yeah, who are you talking to? I never said that none of them were funded.
You said I couldn't demonstrate that they all are. They actually all are. Yeah.
No, you didn't. You said that.
Yeah, I did.
No, you said you named a bunch of people that were paid. That's all you did.
No, what
all
I'm
these
making-
people are paid.
No,
and if they influence
listen,
anybody,
just
then
if
those
you just
people
would
are funded
in a
too.
good faith way
Then, like,
listen
then
for
then
2
this is
seconds, you would
funded then,
agree.
right? Wouldn't this be funded?
If
Everything's
you,
funded?
if
Is everything,
you,
no, it's my turn.
no,
Is
not everything
everything
is funded. No,
Okay,
not
well,
everything
if
is funded.
If I have influence on somebody, is it funded?
If you have NGOs backing you or backing
Okay.
the person who you're
Okay.
following, yes.
Okay, but how do you know that the person that made my Facebook group was influenced by that funding?
Because all of mass media, which orchestrated the Black Lives Matter to begin with,
How do
was
you know- how
NGO
do you know
funded,
that-
which
how do
trickled
you know that's
down.
who did it? How do you know that's who did it? How do you know that's who
Because you wouldn't have
Because I
even
know!
there wouldn't
I
have
just
been
know!
there would not have even been an organization. There would not have even been an organized
This is
protest had it not been for the organizations at the top, which were NGO funded. It wouldn't have even existed.
Even by your measures, this is pretty.
You just
this
use
is
screaming
tough.
is not a refutation.
Brother. I'm making fun of you because you just screamed.
I don't care what you make fun
You're
of. You don't even know what
literally
you're talking about.
You
Oh,
just
you're
made up an
killing
argument
me.
that I didn't.
There's
make.
no
I
made up
screamed
arguments.
about it. You started screaming.
All
at
you've
a straw
done is
man.
screech at the top of your lungs, but have not made a
That's you, sweetheart.
refutation.
That's you. You're the one
How?
that just
When
finished
did I
screaming.
scream?
Oh,
You
ladies.
just were.
I never did. You just made that up too.
You were
You've
just
gotten
yelling.
routed at every point of the debate because
Yeah, I
you
did.
won't even engage with what I'm saying.
You're doing great, Andrew.
Yes, I am.
Doing
You got
really
about 15 more.
I
minutes
always do.
good. I know it. I know. Undefeated.
Choose wisely.
Well, I'm not undefeated, just not defeated by you.
Sure. I don't. This is the problem that I think that, I'll just not even speak to Andrew. To the people that are watching here, this is the fucking problem. The problem is Andrew is here to debate his ideology, and I'm not really interested in his fucking ideology, frankly, because it's fucking stupid and it relies on a hypothetical God that doesn't exist, and all of this is just a way for
Is that a
Andrew
moral
to
claim?
to justify his bigotry. No, this is I was influenced by NGOs. They sent this all down to me. These aren't
That
my own
actually
thoughts.
probably was
I
influenced by NGOs.
I was influenced by NGOs.
You
not
probably were,
not
actually.
not the 8 hours of watching you stream where I accidentally got a nicotine addiction, which has been a motherfucker to try and kick, by the way. I just think that you don't want to debate any of this. I think that you want to create an ideological following, which you have, and you've been very successful about it. And the people that reach out to me to debate you, they're all ideologues too. And the problem that they have that you don't realize is you're really fucking good at this. But the people that follow you are really fucking dumb, and they can't make up arguments on the spot. So they're unable to defend any of this because you give them nothing. You give them vibes. You give them Christian nationalism. I wanted to discuss the numbers here. I would love to see you refute some numbers, but every time we get into the numbers,
Why do you need to discuss numbers I'm willing to grant?
You just want to tell me more about your feelings.
Yeah,
about
but do
social
you
cohesion.
understand that the debate proposition here is this? Are the deportations, do they do more good than harm? I literally just grant the numbers. Why would we need to talk about a thing I'm willing to grant in order to still show you how the argument is flawed, even if I grant the numbers?
I don't think you've done that, Andrew.
So hang on, stop. So what your argument just now was to me was, Andrew, why won't we talk about Why do we need to talk about a thing I'm willing to grant?
All right, then I won. It was great.
That's
everybody.
not a win.
My numbers are correct.
What's the proposition?
If you care more,
Even
about
if
getting rid of
what's
those
the
pesky
proposition?
immigrants than the financial success of this country.
What's the
go with
proposition?
Andrew. If
What's
you
the
would
proposition?
If you would prefer our country to be in a better financial position
Mm-hmm.
with immigrants, you side with me. This is an easy one.
Is
But
the
one of
propo-
us-
yeah.
But one of us is providing solutions. One of us is giving you data.
Oh,
that you
yes,
can
I agree.
digest,
One of us is.
and the other one wants to talk about what harm means.
Now, do you understand the distinction here? So
Yes.
the gentleman over here says, I win because numbers good. Great. The thing that's so interesting here is that the proposition is more good than harm. And the problem and this is so apparently fucking funny to me that he doesn't even understand that. He's too stupid to understand.
I'm right here, dipshit. You can
If
say
it
hi
is,
to me.
if it is
You don't
the
have to
case,
talk. Guys,
how
you
can you
even understand?
how can
Just
you
talk to
start
me.
by saying I'm going to address
to
the?
me.
How are you going to start by saying I'm going to address the
right,
audience
that's
and
fair,
not
actually.
you,
That's
and then
fair.
I can't do that?
No,
Can
that's
you-
fair.
Yeah,
You're right
that's the
about
dumbest
that.
thing I ever
That's fair.
fucking heard. So anyway, so you point out, you say, hey. What about the numbers? I want to talk about the numbers. However, I was willing to grant the numbers and still show you the absurdity
go.
of the conclusion.
Which was what?
Even if it's the case that immigrants gave us, I don't know, 20% more GDP, which I think you could argue way better, let's just say, if it was 20% versus illegals. If I grant the position, you don't have to argue it because it's granted. The whole purpose here is for me to demonstrate to you how there's many contributing factors to illegal immigration other than my fucking GDP. All you just stated was, hey, audience, if you want a higher GDP, do X, but you're not giving them an actually good reason what is good, what is bad, why they should do this thing. Only if numbers right, then what? Are you saying that if the case was that we imported slaves and the GDP goes up by 3%, that slavery is good?
No.
Okay, why?
Because slavery is bad.
Okay.
Fucking stupid.
I don't know where to go from there, dude.
I know you don't. I know.
Why is it? Why is slavery? Because slavery is bad.
Let's talk about it for 12 more fucking hours.
Yeah. Do you understand why is it? But listen, actually contend with what I'm saying to you, and you'll have an easier time. If I imported a bunch of slaves and it increased the GDP, why would you still say that was bad?
Because I don't think that you should be able to take people's labor and own it and not pay them. In fact, I'm kind of against even
that makes sense.
The way that we distribute labor as it is.
So you would look at other contributing factors to social cohesion and morality before you made a decision, not just numbers.
Sure, and we talked about social cohesion.
But the problem is we didn't really get into the rest of this. No,
there too. I think that you're
we're not in the minority.
I think your position of how it would hurt social cohesion is a very minority view, and I don't think it's very compelling.
Yeah, but you saying it's not very compelling isn't giving an argument for how we would have less when you yourself point out that it is based around this, that we have the lack of social cohesion to begin with. The fact that we're fighting about it is a literal indictment itself on mass migration itself. Yeah, so this very idea that we could then move these people out of here and not have more social cohesion to me is fucking insane.
Yeah, look, I look. White nationalists are going to be bitches no matter what.
It's not white nationalism.
I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the white nationalists that are going to throw a fit. Like, they're going to be bitches. I think people who want an ethno state are bitches. They're going to be bitches.
Like the Japanese.
But these bitches are in a minority.
Japanese
and you
are bitches.
You also happen to hold a minority view. Yeah, I think anybody who wants an ethno state is a bitch. Yeah.
Why?
100%.
Why?
Because I think it's just closed-minded, fear-mongering bullshit.
Should Native Americans be allowed to have an ethno state on their own tribes?
Oh boy.
Should they be able to, or do I think?
Do you think they should be able to? Are they bitches? Are they bitches? Say Native Americans who want tribal sovereignty and they only want the Native Americans on their land are bitches. Say it. What else is that? It's their own country, dude.
Yeah, look, I think if any group of people thinks that they get to remove people out of the country,
not remove, just not let in, just not let in.
You're trying to remove them. No, you're trying
to but even if I wasn't,
that's what we're talking about.
Even
this whole
bro,
fucking argument's about removing people.
Okay,
why are we yelling?
You know what's funny? I'll even grant this. Do you think that Native Americans, if they were able to show that you were on their sovereign land via treaty from the United States government, and there was 300 white families there, that it would be perfectly morally permissible for them to remove them so that became Indian-only land?
If there were white families living on land that was granted to them, would they be able to remove those people?
Yeah.
Yeah, for property rights, sure.
And do you think that that's fine?
Yeah, I believe in property rights.
Great. That's all the fucking white nationalists believe in, is that their country is their property and they have property rights, you fucking doofus.
But you don't own the
country. What
a
stupid fuck.
You guys don't own the country because it's collectively owned. You think you own the country.
Collectively owned by who?
All of the citizens of the United States.
Oh, wait a second. So to get this right, as long as it's the case that a sovereign nation collectively decides to remove people they don't want in the nation, that's fine. And as long as they collectively don't want people in, that's also fine.
Agreed. And
welcome to white nationalism.
Yeah, but you're...
You fucking idiot. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, you guys don't own the nation. You're the dumb bitches. You're just
dumb bitches.
You're just dumb bitches that get.
They're dumb bitches who are allowed to do whatever they want as long as they have majority rule.
No, I said you guys don't run the country. If 90% of this country were dumbass white nationalists, yeah, they could probably dictate who comes and who doesn't.
Uh-huh.
But the problem is you got like
you said the Japanese were
specifically,
bitches if they did that.
Your belief is less than 1% of this country.
Yeah, but in Japan,
you don't really have an option to rule here, do you?
So why is it that you called the Japanese bitches for doing the exact same thing?
I don't know much about Japan. What do they do?
But you said that they're bitches.
Well, what? No, I said if they don't believe people should be allowed in their country who aren't of Japanese ethnicity, then I think they're bitches.
Why?
Because I think that is a small-minded, fear-mongering way to live life, and I think it's bitchy.
So then, on the one hand, you say that it's perfectly acceptable for Native Americans to do that, and they're not bitches. But on the other hand, it's not acceptable for the Japanese to do that because it makes them bitches.
No, I didn't say that. I said I
so
believe
if Native Americans want
just like I believe, I don't think it's any different than if I went and pitched a tent in your backyard and you said you have to leave because this is my property. I believe you have that right.
Oh,
I believe in property.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's the property right.
That's it. So
right?
and you said that doesn't make you a bitch, right?
Yeah, but it's not about ethnicity. It's about property rights.
Yeah, I know, but it doesn't make you a bitch.
No, it doesn't make you a bitch.
So as long as the shareholder of the property, in this case the nation, universally agrees on what to do with that property, they're not bitches.
You could still be a bitch, but you might have the right to do
you're going to have to make up your mind. Either they are or they aren't.
Bitches don't have rights?
I don't even understand what that means. Can you answer to what I just asked you?
If you live in the United States and you are a bitch, do you have the same rights as somebody who is not a bitch?
Not the same property rights, no.
If you both have property, you don't have the same property
Well, if you both
rights?
have property, then what would end up happening is if the collective, who had the joint ownership of said property, decided that all the bitches have to leave, from your view, that's perfectly acceptable.
Yeah, if you had joint property, for example, like I grew up Mormon.
Collectively owned.
There are places in Utah that are collectively owned and in Florida by the Mormon Church, and if you will go on that property, they can remove you.
Are they bitches?
Yes.
Because they remove you.
No, they're bitches because they're bitches. Mormons are bitches.
Okay, so not because they remove you?
No, they're bitches.
So
for
then
other
removing
reasons.
people you don't want to collectively own property is actually not a bitch thing to do.
Not necessarily. It's not necessarily a bitch thing to do.
Okay, so only if you remove them because you don't want them there. And
no, only if you do. Only if you're removing them because of what they look like.
What if you're removing them because their culture is distinctly different than yours, and you think it'll cause social cohesion issues?
I think you're kind of a bitch there.
Oh, you think you're kind of a bitch there too.
Yeah.
So you're all for property rights unless they're exercised for some group that you think you shouldn't be allowed to exercise those property rights against.
No, you still get the rights. You're just a bitch.
Oh, I see. You're just a bitch.
Yeah.
Based on what?
My feelings.
Oh, your feelings. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that we'll start making foreign policy based on your.
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not using the actual word bitch, right? Like, I'm not using it as it actually.
I don't know what. I don't know.
Yeah.
You won't clarify words, will you?
No, not this one.
Or any.
No. I've clarified all the words you've asked for.
No, you really haven't clarified them. But I was just willing to grant like the most ridiculous, over-the-top, good faith definition of them I could. And even then, you fell short. Here, you just said that it was perfectly acceptable for Native Americans to remove white families from land which was allocated to them.
Correct.
And you have no problem with that, even if they're just removing them because they're white.
Correct. It's their property.
Yeah, exactly. And they're not bitches. However, if the Japanese do the exact same thing, they are bitches. And if the Mormons do that, they're bitches. So really what you're just saying is white people can't do it and everybody else can.
Oh, you're saying, so if I think natives are doing it just because people are white, yeah, I think that's bitchy.
Okay, so they're not allowed to have their own culture.
They're allowed to have their own culture, and I'm allowed to call them a bitch.
Okay, so you think that they should be allowed to do this, but they're still bitches for enforcing their own culture.
Correct.
What would make them bitches?
That they're afraid of somebody else's skin color.
Do you think that Native Americans would have a really good claim to make that due to the fact of the rapid rate of dispatch against them by white people, that they could be culturally a force of non-cohesion to them?
Sure, maybe.
So if that's the case, how would that make them bitches to make
maybe
in
that case they probably wouldn't be a bitch.
Oh, okay. So then it is perfectly acceptable for Native Americans to remove white people from their lands just because they're white.
Well,
See how that works?
They can move. No, they can only remove them because it's their land. If it wasn't their land, they couldn't remove them.
No, I'm not
for any
asking
reason.
whether or not they can. We've already established that. But whether or not if they do, they're bitches. And you just got done saying on the one hand, if you remove them because they're white, they're bitches. And then the second, I give you another scenario because they're white. No,
that's not because they're white. It's because
it is
perceived harm.
No, yeah, exactly. So the
Exactly.
perceived harm based on them being white.
All right, so let's talk about.
Hang on, the perceived harm based on them being white, though, right?
No, not based on them being.
Oh,
white.
then what's it based on?
Based on this country, which isn't all white people mistreating them.
So it's based on the lack of cultural cohesion that they would see from them being white, right?
No, I just said no to that.
Oh, no. So if they removed you because they thought that it would create a lack of cultural cohesion, how would they create the distinction between you and them? How would they create the distinction between you and them?
Repeat that again. I wasn't listening.
How would they create the distinction between you and them?
Me and who?
The Native American tribe, how would they create the distinction between themselves and white people?
On the land?
Yes.
Well, they would be able to see that these people aren't with us.
Oh, so then it would be due to a distinct difference in culture?
No, I don't think it's cultural. Is it
then
cultural?
How would they know? So then it's racial?
In this current state, is it cultural for us?
So then it would be racial?
Would you mind if I got the question out real quick? In these current conditions, is it cultural that white people are going on and taking Native American lands?
No, but the opposite. The opposite is what I'm asking.
The opposite of what?
Yeah, so if Native Americans came in and they said that we want to remove you because it would cause cultural issues with us
if it's
on
their
our
land?
ancestral land, hang on.
Yeah, they have property rights.
Yeah, I know that they can do it, but you said the thing that makes them not bitches is that they don't do it because these people are white. I'm just asking you, how would they distinguish between them and white people?
No, it's not saying that they can identify if you're white. Of course you can identify if somebody's white. This is what I'm talking about. Like, this is supposed to be about immigration.
It is about immigration.
We're down to this. I'm sorry
we're testing logic.
I'm sorry that I called people bitches.
Yeah, we're testing logic. I'm just asking, and I'm going to ask you again until you answer the question. What would be the thing that Native Americans would look at to say you're in other category than us?
What do you mean? Like, what would, like, physically, what would they look at?
Yeah, anything.
Well, if they looked out and you didn't happen to be white, they could also maybe identify that you're not with us. You don't have to be white, right?
Great. So then, how would they identify people who fucking aren't them, dude?
So listen. So they can remove anybody they want.
Yeah.
And if they do it strictly because of somebody's skin color, I would say that's a bitch move.
Yeah. How would they identify that they're in the other category?
Probably with their eyes.
Yeah, and what would make them determine that?
Their eyes.
Yeah, and what would make with their eyes that they're perceiving would make them think that they're in the other category.
Well, if these were white people, then they would say those are white people. And if they're removing those people simply because they're white and not because they are invading their land, then I would have a problem with it.
Then you just contradicted yourself.
But if they're doing it because those people are there on their land where they have property rights, then yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, so then from your perspective, cultural cohesion, right? If you want to remove people because of that, it's not a bitch move, just like if Japan does it. And the only way
it's still a bitch move.
Oh, it's still a bitch move. Yeah. Okay. I'm super confused about how all of this works.
I know.
I thought you just got done saying if they remove them specifically because they're white, right? Even though they're not a problem to the culture, that would be an issue, right?
Well, I don't think this is a social cohesion move. I think this is a property rights issue.
Well, I think that but why are they removing them from the property?
Because they're not allowed to be there. I don't know. Why are they
removing them? Well, that would be a social cohesion issue, right?
Sure, but if if the social cohesion is literally just you look different than me, then you're kind of a bitch.
Yeah, okay. So the idea here is that if the social cohesion is not that, but you just feel like it would be invasive on whatever your culture is, that's not bitch move, right?
If it's invasive on your culture?
Yeah, you feel like, so then that wouldn't be a bitch move.
Well, this wouldn't even exist. This scenario
But it does exist.
No, it can't exist in the scenario you're laying out because regardless of where you are, if you are on their property, they have property rights to remove you, and they have every
but they don't
right
have
to remove you.
Right?
But they don't have to. And the small minority of people that agree with you don't have property rights for this country. Yeah. You have the same opportunity I have to make your case, and you guys, your case. Yeah, but I think that your case is not something that if we followed would make social cohesion better.
I don't know,
because it's a massive minority view.
This is really funny because all you're saying here is that if it is the case that they don't have to remove white people, they don't have to because they hold the property rights. If they decide to enforce that due to cultural cohesion issues, you have no problem with that. It doesn't make them bitch made. However, somehow you have decided arbitrarily that if any other groups,
I don't know how many more times.
Groups do
how many
this,
more times
they
do I
are
have to
bitch
say it's
made.
property rights? I don't know how many more times.
Yeah,
I
I understand, but
I don't care. I don't care what.
I understand property rights.
I don't.
But what makes you remove the people? What makes you remove the people?
I've never done it. I don't care about the philosophical debate.
Okay.
The point is
that
you're making a philosophical argument without the property right.
No, I'm not even making a philosophical
one. And you're saying
one.
that this is going to be about social cohesion.
Yes.
But I find that most of the problems, almost everything that our country has ever stood up for in my lifetime and fought for, it's people like you that are like, no, we don't want diversity. We're upset about diversity.
Your country has fought for that?
I said, while I've been alive, like the stuff that we've fought about in this country, it's mostly been people fighting for progress and a bunch of Christian nationalists being like, no, we don't want change.
Well, that's really weird. Sounds like cultural cohesion to me.
Yeah, but you're in the minority, so you're not cohesive. You
I
are
see
the problem.
They're in the minority as well.
You
right?
are the cog in the wheel.
No, I see. So as long as I have the majority who says that it's fine, then I'm justified in doing the said thing, right?
Not justified, but you would have a better argument, right?
Well, why would I not be justified in doing it? That's your whole argument, is that
you could
the reason
the cultural in doing it.
The reason that the lack of cultural cohesion exists is because one side, which is a smaller side than yours, argues with you about it. If that was reversed, would they then, by that logic, would they not be justified in saying you're the minority and we can justify removal?
I think you would be within your rights. I still think that there's, in my opinion,
all you're saying is that I need to convince more people to agree with me.
Yeah, I do think
that's it.
I do think you should try and do that, and maybe by not arguing about what the word good and bad means might be a more effective way.
Andrew, would you like to begin with your closing thoughts, please?
Yeah, it's really simple. It's really funny. This guy's kind of a contradiction machine. It was fun to do to him. So I start every debate, and anybody who does a modicum of research will understand that almost every debate that I do, if we have loaded terms, in this case, a loaded term being harm, right, or good, these are loaded terms. From his perspective, they would be subjective references, and from mine, objective. So I need to know exactly what he means by those terms as we go through the course of the debate. Why? Why is that so important? Well, because my opponent's entire argument here is that somehow if more money come into country, therefore good. Okay, that's fair. But when I give him a counterexample of why don't we just bring in slaves, we'll definitely make a lot more money, he says we shouldn't do that because bad. Do you see now why we need to know the difference between what is good and what is bad? It's because when we're talking about these specific issues, it's very important for us to have entailments about whether or not money itself is what's good, or GDP going up or down is what's good, or if there's other things that we should be focusing on. When I brought this point up, my opponent agreed. He said, yes, you're right. There's other contributing issues, including social factors. We started moving into social factors because he couldn't justify any of his social beliefs. When I brought up various hypotheticals, he instantly contradicted himself. He contradicted himself even most recently when I brought up the hypotheticals on Native Americans, how he would deal with that. He says, no, private property rights is what we're after. Okay, so then collectively, if I have the joint private property of most people, they agree with me, they want to remove immigrants, there's no problem with that. He says, no, there's no problem with it, but you're a bitch. Well, why are you a bitch? Well, because I just don't agree with it, because I don't like it. It's like, okay, great. You don't get anywhere with any of this stuff because these people refuse to actually commit to any of their positions. His committal to his position was this simple: money more good. But that can't be the case. It can't be the case that money more good, because if I bring in other examples of money more being bad, he has to concede, no, that's actually bad. So we have to look at all the contributing factors. Why I wanted to look at social cohesion, the various things which are entailed there. Now, I don't know why he demanded that we equivocate the entire debate, absolutely refused to give any of the metrics for the very terms he's using, but he said for some reason, if I granted even the economic argument, this must mean that I lose the debate, which had nothing to do with economics. It only had to do with whether or not deportations were good or harmful. That's it. Had nothing to do with money, had nothing to do with GDP, nothing. For some reason, he banks on the fact that if GDP go up, that good, regardless of externalities or external circumstances. The whole thing is fucking absurd, and it's because my debate interlocutor doesn't understand basic terms or basic philosophy. Not only does he not understand basic philosophy, but he doesn't even understand what we're talking about. He says I was debating around the prompt. I was the only buddy who was debating with the prompt. Literally, the prompt is it more harm or more gooder if we have immigration deportation? So what's the first thing I do? What do we mean here when we talk about harm? And what do we mean here when we talk about good? Why would that be so fucking important to a debate about if something has a lot more harm than it has good? Because my opponent wants to equivocate the entire time and say, well, I just mean different things by that. And then I'll switch my view to this if it's good. I'll switch my view to that. This is what's good. This is what's not good. He wants me to just grant his position that GDP more equals good, even though he's refuted the second we bring slavery into that. The second we do. You have to define your very terms so that this type of equivocation doesn't happen. I've pointed this out to the Crucible a million times. He says I'm an ideologue, I'm a zealot, never demonstrated any of that. All he saw was a good faith interlocutor, but because they're such bad faith, these fucking progressives, they never want to commit to the very positions they agreed to debate. Rather, somehow this became a debate about GDP. How? Where the fuck was this debate about GDP and immigration? Nowhere. It was never about GDP in relation to immigrants. It was about whether it was more harm than good. Learning what those terms are, how they affect what it is that we're discussing, that's the key end point. And I literally spent half of the debate just trying to get this fucking guy to understand. I just need to know what the fuck he's talking about when he uses the terms, and instead he says, no, I came here to give you numbers. Are my fucking numbers right? Who cares? I'll just grant your numbers. I'll grant that they're right. Where does that get us, though? That doesn't get us to more harm than good. We don't even know what we mean by these terms. So anyway, super easy debate. I knew I would win on the outset because the guy's a fucking idiot. But now you guys know.
The flexibility that you have there to consistently jack yourself off and pat yourself on the back is pretty impressive, Andrew. Look, I grew up an ideologue. I grew up in a cult. And let me tell you about people that debate as ideologues. What they have to do is they have to create a structure in which you are forced to debate in, because what it does is it allows them to take all of their shitty views and protect them with this absolute morality. That's how Andrew debates. Andrew wanted to have a debate about morality. I told every single person before this debate that I would bring stats and Andrew would try and just define every word. I've seen him do it time and time again. And everybody's opposition to Andrew that is a good debater is somebody who says, Andrew, I don't want to play this silly game with you. And that's why Andrew usually gets most of his clicks by taking people off the street, giving them some pizza, and bringing them in without any knowledge. It's a very Charlie Kirkian way. But let me just tell you this. Andrew will never give you a specific about anything. Andrew will never give you a policy prescription, because what Andrew and what this lucky band of incels want to do is take Christian nationalism and rule over all of you. That's what they want. So they want to have a debate where they can take their warped view and their racist views and their bigoted views and their misogynistic views, and they want to position them in a way that theirs don't look crazy. And that's all Andrew wanted to do here. Andrew doesn't give a goddamn about this country. Andrew doesn't give a goddamn about what's best for this country. Andrew doesn't want democracy. Andrew wants Christian nationalism, the very thing we fled from. The whole reason we have a fucking country is because we got away from shit like this, where the husband submits to the wife and women don't get to vote, and you have to you can't have an abortion, and the church dictates everything. The reason Andrew wants to debate like this is because he doesn't have anything of substance to say. If Andrew was running for political office, he would be laughed off of every stage because he says fucking nothing. He comes on here to try and win a debate with semantics, and that's fine. He's really fucking good at it. Really fucking good at it. That's why he has 200,000 followers. But it's also why the growth is always going to be limited. He's always going to hold a minority position because human beings are human. And that's why the people that listen to you, Andrew, that come to me, that are in my DMs, they're desperate to have a conversation about anything other than the fucking debate tactics that you set up here. Yeah, this was a silly debate. You refuse to engage on any numbers. You keep reducing my position to GDP. I gave you a million different numbers and you focused on GDP because the reality is you wanted to frame this as a moral debate, and I wouldn't go there with you. And it's fine. I'm glad that you have your morals from your sky daddy that are completely made up and completely subjective, and you base your whole life around it. But I don't think that you're convincing to average, everyday people, which is who I want to speak to.